Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? See lots of people in the chat. What's up, uncreative person? Medic, Goji65, Mario, Chestio. How's it going, everybody? Hello. This is not pre-recorded. Why would this be pre-recorded? I was going to do my Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 10 review today. I'm working on it. It's just taken a really long time. I've actually posted the audio-only version of that on the Patreon. If you want to check out the Patreon, it should be linked in the description below. I think it is. So audio-only review on the Patreon. As far as getting the review out today, it's just not going to happen. It's just taking too long. But I wanted to pop on here in the meantime and talk about the episode with you guys. First of all, have you guys seen the episode? I'd love to hear how many people in the chat currently have seen the episode. I'm really curious. I guess I could also maybe tweet out the stream. I always forget to do that. I guess I could probably do that. That'd probably be wise. Let me do that. I wasn't planning on streaming, but, you know, it happens every now and then. I just was too busy today, so I didn't wind up getting to finish the video. All right, got that out. Seems like quite a bit of you guys have seen the episode. That's good. That's good. That's what we like to hear. We're going to be spoiling the whole thing, so spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. So let's hope you have seen it. Yes, watched it earlier today. God, that fight was awesome. It moved me, man. It was a great fight. I loved the fight. Yes, I have. I loved it. That's what we like to hear. I watched it. Yes, I have. Perfect. Perfect. We already know the review. We already know the review. We all do. Episode was phenomenal. Yes. How many people in the chat liked the episode? Seems like everybody. Everyone keeps saying that there's a certain part where the Ion Dragon has the eagle sound from Angry Birds. I saw it, Orca Boss. I saw the clip on Twitter today. That was so funny. The fact that they've used the eagle sound effect from Angry Birds when Godzilla slams the Ion Dragon against that mountain is so funny. You thought it was the best fight in the MonsterVerse. Wow, that's a big feat, Kaiju Not. You must have loved that minute and 20 seconds. It was a great fight. It was a lot of intensity. It was super cool. And I really liked the fighting styles displayed in it from both Godzilla and the Ion Dragon. And I really appreciated how the show was just straight up aware. That boy stands no shot against the King of the Monsters. He got whooped. I loved it. Ion Dragon will return with a robot wing. No, I don't think so. I personally, it was a bit short, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. I actually do agree. It was, actually, the thing that I felt could have been drawn out the most was probably the atomic breath buildup. I just felt like happened really, just happened. Like, it's just the thing he does, you know, and as we all know it is, but I appreciate the MonsterVerse movies. They always take their time to build up to the atomic breath like it was going to be something epic, and this show got right to it. So I guess I could have used a bit more of a build up at some points in the fight, but I thought overall the fight was really cool. Keiko's actress acted the shit out of her role. Mew, she killed it in this episode. Marie Yamamoto plays Keiko. She elevated this episode to a whole nother level. Remember in the last episode review where for episode 9 I talked about how I think his name's Ren Watabe, who plays Kentaro. He did such an incredible job in episode 9 bringing this really sincere just drama to the show. So much sorrows. And in this episode, Marie Yamamoto took that and she ran with it. It was beautiful. Her performance was incredible. By far the best human performance maybe we've ever seen in the MonsterVerse. It very well could be the most emotionally moving human performance we've seen in the MonsterVerse. The only one that I can think that comes close was Bryan Cranston's performance when he's looking out that window in 2014 and he's talking about how it's his fault that Sandra died. That scene is great. That's probably the peak of the human drama in the MonsterVerse movies. And yeah, Marie Yamamoto, man, she did a great job in this episode. Not gonna lie, I was hyped for Kong at the end, as you should be, because he's the best. How confusing was it Keiko by her icon being in the Hollow Earth for 57 days? They say a full year would be in the Hollow Earth. Just spin my head around 57 days. Ben, I wouldn't worry about the timeline of how long they've been in Hollow Earth. Basically, my understanding of the show, my understanding of it is that it's not about how long you're in the Hollow Earth, or in this case, Axis Mundi. That's the stupidest shit they did. It's not how long you're in Axis Mundi, it's how you get in and out, because there's such an intense gravitational vortex that sucks you in and sucks you out, that unless you have a device that navigates it, I think humans just kind of get thrown around the thing, and while they're being thrown around it, they're not zipped to the portal they need to be zipped to, and in flying around there, there's such heavy gravitational distortion, but that by the time they land, it will look like a lot of time has passed. Whereas you can, I think, just hang out down in Axis Mundi as long as you have a quick way in and out, like the Heaves, for instance. I would imagine if Gia and Nathan Lind and them and the Heaves wound up just flying into the gravitational inversion and fighting it and trying to stay in it as long as possible, I have a feeling that when they got out of it, a lot more time had passed than they would have realized. That's what I think is happening. They did do a fake out with the atomic breath at first. That was great. I loved the way that that thing just vomits all over Godzilla's face. What a great Showa era moment. Like, that's the perfect Showa era superpower for a monster to have, except I'm sure in the Showa era, it would have set, he wouldn't have been able to use his atomic breath for a while. But I loved that. And I really loved that this show gave powers to the monsters that were just kind of silly powers, like the Frostvark being able to suck the heat out of things and create that wind vortex with its mouth. So freaking cool. And also, so Barugon from the Gamera Showa movies. And then in this episode, we've got the Ion Dragon, who first of all can leave streaks of light in the air, which he doesn't do here, but he does that in episode 2. And then here he's able to like spit vomit all over Godzilla, shutting down the atomic breath and kind of blinding him for a second. I just thought that stuff is so much fun. What's up, Dadzilla? How's it going, man? I like seeing you in the comments all the time. Yes, at the end of the show, they wind up in 2017. So they're not after the events of Godzilla vs. Kong. They show up in the year 2017. Which I don't love. I would have preferred maybe a 2016 time jump, just because there's still stuff I want to explore in the MonsterVerse, such as finding Ghidorah. I think in order to have a very satisfying build up to Godzilla King of the Monsters, they've got to do a bit of the groundwork in this show, and so far they don't really. This show's not really interested in setting up Godzilla King of the Monsters as much as it is trying to set up Godzilla vs. Kong, and I understand that because Godzilla King of the Monsters has some pretty big world building jumps, but they're mostly around the portrayal of how far Monarch has come since 2014, and it's kind of okay to just be like, wow, they developed a lot off screen. Godzilla vs. Kong is a movie that I don't love criticizing it just because the fan base has become hyper defensive over it, but to be honest, it's got horrible world building. It just introduces things as if they've always been around when there's been no setup for them, like Mechagodzilla or the Maglev or even Apex as a whole. And I really appreciate that Monarch Legacy of Monsters is trying very hard to make up for that, and is trying very hard to at least go back to justify some of these giant leaps that we have to take. Like, for instance, I don't know if any of you guys caught this, when they get sucked out of Axis Mundi at the end of the episode and they arrive on Skull Island, the thing that sucks them out is one of the maglev generators from the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, the one that shoots them to Hong Kong. So they're trying to bring in some of these elements of Godzilla vs. Kong because the film didn't do the groundwork for itself. It just skipped straight to it. Oh, thank you very much. Is it your name Kiryu the Dragon Warrior? I can only see part of your name, but thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, glad they're to make the tech jump make more sense and I find it funny / neat how Big G's atomic breath was more 2014 than 2019. So you're glad they're able to find a way to make the tech jump make a little more sense. Kiryu, I completely agree with you. As I was saying, it's really difficult for me to discuss Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla X Kong these days because any sort of nuance is apparently the wrong thing to do. People get very defensive over those movies, but there's no world building in them. A lot of people praise the world building in Godzilla vs. Kong because look at how far the world has come. I think it's a really poor excuse to just throw shit at the wall and be like, see, it's always been there. That's how it always is. And I really appreciate that Monarch Legacy of Monsters is looking at that and going, ugh, we got to do the groundwork to build the universe to this point. And I think it's great that it's doing that. And then as for the atomic breath, I loved that the atomic breath was 2014 styled. I loved that it didn't... Godzilla glowing blue all the time is such a cool thing that was introduced at the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it's been used very well in Godzilla vs. Kong, but I was really worried that moving forward, Godzilla was just going to always be glowing blue in movies. And I'm really happy that's not the case. I'm really happy that Godzilla in this show just charges his breath the way that the old Godzilla did. I think that's great. And I also think it's great that the atomic breath looks 2014 styled because Godzilla has yet to be supercharged. So, of course, it's not going to be that 2019 atomic breath yet. That's good stuff. What are your opinions on the Titans that were introduced? I've seen a bit of negative discussion about them. I want to know your thoughts. Minecraft, personally, I really like the Titans in this show because they're so small. I would not have called them Titans. I would have called them super species or Mutos. I would not have called them Titans. I think that the term Titan has lost its meaning. Originally, Michael Dougherty said the term Titan was basically just the MonsterVerse's translation for the word kaiju. Well, in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, we learned that the word kaiju exists in the MonsterVerse, so that can't be the case. And then Michael Dougherty basically explained it as a way to say, well, the public came to associate the term Muto with the creatures that attacked San Francisco. That's why they had to come up with the term Titan, to basically give a designation to all of the monsters. But that's not really... It was taken to a different level where it was like, that's the big monsters, because the Skull Island creatures aren't Titans. Some of the Skull Crawlers aren't Titans. There was a large debate for a long time over if Kong was a Titan. I don't entirely understand what the term Titan means these days, because like the Frostvark is a Titan. I would have preferred it just be called a Muto. Or super species. I don't know. But I guess my point is, I think it's really cool that they're small, because I really like human-scaled monsters. I think they add a whole different level of depth to the universe, and I think they are very interesting whenever they appear. I think it's always so cool. Like Godzilla Singular Point. The thing that I love so much about Singular Point is that the monsters in Godzilla Singular Point, they're not all kaiju-sized. They're just standard, like, dinosaur size. Or a little bigger, and I thought that was rad as hell that Monarch Legacy of Monsters introduces these 20-foot, 50-foot monsters. They don't all need to be city-destroying monsters. I think that is so cool because it adds a new level of danger to the world. Now you don't know, maybe some of the monsters are small, you know? Maybe they can appear in a city. Maybe they can go in the buildings. It adds a whole new level of threat to the universe where nowhere is as safe as you thought. And also, the smaller the monster, the more intention it would have in killing a human. Because the bigger the monster, the less they're going to notice the human. And you notice that a lot with Godzilla, where the bigger the Godzilla, the less personal he becomes. And in this episode, Godzilla notices the humans only because they've got that device. And then the second a Titan shows up, he couldn't care less about them. And that makes a lot of sense, but it just goes to show that like a smaller Titan like the Ion Dragon would still have a more personal connection to the humans they're attacking. Also, I saw a lot of you guys in the chat a second ago talking about how badly we need Houston Brooks. That is something I've been talking about since before Legacy of Monsters even aired. Houston Brooks used to be, I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a random period of time right after Kong Skull Island when Houston Brooks was the face of the MonsterVerse. Corey Hawkins did the voiceovers for the trailers. He was in the comic books. Houston Brooks has appeared in more MonsterVerse mythology than anybody else, appearing in most of the comics at this point. Houston Brooks also was the only one to appear in both Kong Skull Island and a Godzilla movie. He appears in Godzilla King of the Monsters. And for a minute, he was the face of Monarch, and I really liked that. It felt like they were setting him up to be the successor to Dr. Serizawa, and I have a feeling, basically just Adam Wingard didn't want to follow up on that stuff, because Adam Wingard's a creative, he's a creator. He likes to create the ideas, and so for him, following up on all that stuff was clearly not his priority, as you saw with the rewrites to Godzilla vs. Kong, which essentially eliminated all of Michael Dougherty's influence. Originally, we were going to have Dr. Chen and maybe Dr. Ling back in Godzilla vs. Kong. We were going to have the Orca back. There was going to be a lot more Mark Russell. It was going to be a lot more tied to the mythology of Godzilla King of the Monsters. And in Godzilla vs. Kong, that was completely eliminated. And it's because Adam Wingard just doesn't want to follow up on the other people's ideas. He wants to create the ideas. So as much as I would love to see Houston Brooks back in the movies, I think as long as Wingard's around, that's not going to happen, which is why I'm desperate for him to show up in the Monarch show. And you could have both versions show up. If you could have Corey Hawkins show up in the 80s, because of course now we've launched Shaw into the 80s. He needs to go on more adventures because we know he goes on more adventures between when he lands in the 80s and when we meet him in 2015. And what a cooler person to meet than Houston Brooks, someone who has an equally close relationship to Bill Randa. That'd be great. And then Bill Randa and Houston Brooks in the modern day could be a new face in Monarch who we're meeting and we're like, oh, this guy's not that bad. He's kind of like Tim. He's kind of got a lot of Tim's mentalities. He'd be living on Skull Island by the time the characters get launched onto Skull Island in 2017. According to canon, Houston Brooks has been living on Skull Island since, I think, 2012. And I think he moves out if I'm remembering correctly, he moves out in 2019. That's his last year living on Skull Island, in which Eileen Andrews has taken over his command. So bring him back, man. Bring the guy back. Does Monarch Legacy of Monsters remember that Monarch is living on Skull Island in canon? Almost definitely not, because they didn't read the comic books, so they don't know that. Oh, thank you so much, Execute Order 69. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. He just says, King Kong, finally, Brooks needs to return. Damn right, man. Like, truer words have never been spoken. I like that stuff. What's up, Valerie? How you doing? Nice to see you here. To Paleo, how's it going? Nice to see you too. Which actor is going to play Houston Brooks this time when season 2 airs? Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Corey Hawkins, by the way, is a television actor. So getting him back to television would be just fine. And if you need to recast Joe Morton's Houston Brooks, dude only had one scene anyways. A recast of that's not going to be that big of a deal. Episode 9 was your least favorite episode? How on earth? That's my favorite episode. Yeah, Tim did. Remember in episode 2, what episode does Tim show up? Does he show up in 1 or 2? Tim shows up in episode 1. I didn't have much of an impression of him in episode 1. I liked him in his scene in episode 1, but it was episode 2 where I was like, I like this guy and I trust him. And everybody on Twitter was like, absolutely, I do not trust that guy. He's a weasel and a rat. And I was right. The guy was awesome. Shaw is a great character. Shaw is a fantastic character. Probably the most nuanced character in the MonsterVerse, but is that really fair? We have spent that dude's entire lifespan with him. We have seen him when he was a young boy, and we have seen him when he was an old man. Like, that's unfair. I feel like we need a second solo Kong before Godzilla vs. Kong. Not only set up Apex and Mechagodzilla, but also explain the lore around Hollow-Earth before fully reveling in it. Spencer, I feel like the MonsterVerse really jumped the gun by going straight to Godzilla vs. Kong. I felt like there could have been one more Kong film before that. I more so feel the MonsterVerse is currently jumping the shark by jumping straight back into the Godzilla and Kong. I very much thought that what should have happened is they should have gone their own ways. We should have gotten a Kong movie next, then a Godzilla movie, then a Kong movie, then maybe bring them back together. Or 2 Godzilla movies and 1 Kong movie and then bring them back together. Either way, they shouldn't have been together so soon. But I do agree. I would like if season 2 spends a little bit more time unpacking the mythology of Skull Island and the Hollow Earth and explaining what the difference between a Hollow Earth and an Axis Mundi is. What the hell? I hope the show influences any future MonsterVerse sequels, as easily my favorite MonsterVerse human cast so far. Ricky, I am right there with you. I really hope that the MonsterVerse learns the lesson that it's okay to play things straight. I thought the portrayal of Axis Mundi was about infinitely more interesting to me than the Hollow Earth. I think the Hollow Earth is just too whatever. It's easy to navigate. They fly around it with the only obstacle being the Warbat. They can traverse the whole thing super fast. They can get from the Antarctica portal to the Hong Kong area so quickly. It just, there's no stakes in the Hollow Earth and Godzilla vs. Kong. And yes, I know that's going to change in Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, but I also just think visually, it's just, while the Inception visuals of the world on top of the world are cool, it's not distinct enough to me. It's just like a jungle-ish area. And what I would really love to see is something that's spooky. And that's what they gave us here. It's weird, it's spooky, it looks completely different than the world up above. It feels monstrous and dangerous and feels like a truly exciting place to explore. I'm all about the Axis Mundi. I just wish it was I wish it was explained differently. I wish they said this is a dense pocket of Hollow Earth, which is how it's been described to me by people closer to the show than myself. So I guess that there's something to go off of. But the way they explain it in the show is basically it's an alternate dimension. How does that work? Eric Barron, thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. He says Anguirus needs to return. I would be all for Anguirus' return in a future MonsterVerse film. I think he is one of the only Toho characters that just completely and perfectly fits the aesthetic of the MonsterVerse. You don't need to change anything about Anguirus to have him fit. Origins don't need to change. All you need to do is just say, oh, there's an Anguirus in the Hollow Earth. Okay, that's all we would need. I think Anguirus is such a... he's one of the more iconic Toho characters, so getting the rights to him would make sense. And also, he's such just an exciting monster. You can do so much with him. I really like when Anguirus is a bit of a scoundrel, but I know a lot of people love when he's Godzilla's buddy, and I think Godzilla could use more buddies. I always think that's fun, and if we're doing a heroic Godzilla, you might as well do it right. And if you're going to do the heroic Godzilla, what better way to do that than with his best friend Anguirus? That would be great. I myself am not the biggest fan of the heroic Godzilla, but I will stand by the Anguirus team up. Oh, Execute Order 69. Thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. And I always like seeing you pop in the streams. I think it's maybe been a minute since I've seen you in a stream, but I also don't stream much these days. So maybe that's just why. Every MonsterVerse director has taken the previous director's... Every MonsterVerse director has taken every previous director's work along with established lore and said, fuck it, we ball. Yes. I feel like Godzilla King of the Monsters gets a lot of flack that it does not deserve. It changes small pieces of the lore. But I felt like Godzilla King of the Monsters was far more faithful to the MonsterVerse overall and was made by someone who was more clearly a fan of the MonsterVerse films than the other directors of the MonsterVerse films. It's no secret that Jordan Vogt Roberts isn't a Godzilla guy, and while he liked Godzilla 2014, Godzilla is just not his jam, and so it makes sense why he would try very hard to avoid getting too into the MonsterVerse, and he wanted to keep things on the side. That makes sense to me. Adam Wingard just clearly just went, ugh. So, I like Adam Wingard a lot, by the way. I've had tons of positive interactions with him. He and I had a great relationship back in the day. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I had a great relationship with him, and I felt like I learned a lot from him in the time that I got to talk to him. And he was a great guy, and I really liked Godzilla vs. Kong, and I really respect what he was trying to do with that movie, and I really appreciate his mentality when it comes to making films. I just personally missed the level of care and dedication that Michael Dougherty had to the lore of the MonsterVerse and to the lore of those characters. I think Adam Wingard just likes cool visuals, and that's fine, but I felt like Dougherty was someone who brought these really interesting ideas about the old gods to the table. I thought that everything he was trying to set up with the Hollow Earth and the old temple and the old society, it was all so cool. I think Adam Wingard just thinks, that didn't look cool enough. What if they fought on a boat? And it's instantly iconic, the fight in Godzilla vs. Kong, and so it justifies his decision to that extent, but I missed the lore that we used to get. I used to think that the lore... I thought that the Michael Dougherty MonsterVerse, I thought, was the peak of the MonsterVerse. I thought that everything they were doing on the Monarch website was peak. Where we were getting those teasers of the monsters out in the real world. I thought that the movie itself was pretty awesome. I think the cinematography shot that movie in the foot, as did the release date, but that's, I guess, a discussion for a different day. I can appreciate what Michael Dougherty was trying to do. King of the Monsters stands as my least favorite of the 4 MonsterVerse films so far. Well, fair enough. I actually don't know what my least favorite MonsterVerse movie is. It constantly fluctuates. I think currently, this very second, it might be Godzilla vs. Kong? I don't know. I'm not sure. I fluctuate all the time depending on what mood I'm in. Because Godzilla vs. Kong is oftentimes my second favorite MonsterVerse movie. I just think right now, that's not the type of Godzilla film I'm into. Execute Order 69... Did you not, have you watched the Monarch show at all? Have you seen Legacy of Monsters? So when you go through gravitational inversions, you don't age. That is why since 2015 I've been 14 years old. I've just gone through a lot of gravitational inversions. And it's starting to take a wear and tear on my body, but not on my age. Permanently 14. I agree, man. The Monarch Sciences website was a huge loss. It was so much fun. Oh, life's good with no legs. Sometimes you don't need them. Sometimes you do need them. And then it's nice to have. They're nice to have. I've been able to borrow some every now and then. Everybody who wasn't around in 2019 is like, what the hell is this guy talking about? I love your videos. Totally agree with the occasional smaller monster appearance is definitely cool, especially the Ion Dragon. Also, do you think Ren Serizawa could be other MonsterVerse entries? Could be in other MonsterVerse entries? I have a feeling that Ren Serizawa will not appear in another movie. Unless you get a really passionate filmmaker who really loves the MonsterVerse. If you get a filmmaker who's just into Godzilla, don't expect to see Ren come back in the films. If you get a filmmaker who's really passionate not just about Godzilla, but about the MonsterVerse, then I think you stand a shot of getting Ren back. I also think if you get that filmmaker back, then you stand a shot of getting Alan Jonah back as well. For now, I don't think we're going to see Ren anytime soon. I think Wingard's already moved on. And I don't think he plans on going back to that. I think Monarch Legacy of Monsters very well could try and dive into the Ren Serizawa storyline. A while ago, we knew that... How bright are the lights in your room? It's pitch black right now in the entire Western Hemisphere. They're very bright. I've got an enormous light right there that's just beaming on my face. I think Ren could show up in Monarch Legacy of Monsters because, for those of you who don't know, when Season 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters originally entered development, this was way back in the year 2019, it was a very different show, and Serizawa was going to play a key role in that show. Serizawa, not Ren Serizawa, Dr. Serizawa, Ishiro Serizawa. That role was changed. I don't know who it was changed to, but I have a feeling it was changed to Verdugo. I think. That'd be my guess. I think Ren Serizawa could stand a shot given that at one point they were planning on having them more connected with the movies. I think if season one has been received very well, it's done very well in terms of viewership. I think you could easily see the budget increase and them start to try and tie more into King of the Monsters and Godzilla 2014, bringing in maybe some familiar faces, including a Ren Serizawa, who I know is from Godzilla vs. Kong, which also makes sense because, man, oh man, have we spent a lot of time working with Apex and building the Godzilla vs. Kong mythos in Monarch. I guess we haven't spent a ton of time with Apex in particular, but we spent a lot of time building out the Hollow Earth, building out Apex and Mechagodzilla's relationship. Now we're exploring Kong more directly. I think that kind of stuff could happen. Oh no, Valerie. Is that because of the cold? I'm sorry. Everybody stay warm. Please stay warm, everybody. I am sad we didn't see Serizawa in Monarch either. There was a lot of easy places to sneak him in for a good cameo, and I felt like they missed the opportunity on that one. Yes, they did make Rodan a bit of a Starscream, and I loved that. Childish, I'm right there with you, holding out hope for O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s G-Team anime. If you don't know, O'Shea Jackson Jr. and Chris Mujahangir, they are trying to make a G-Team anime. For those of you who don't know who O'Shea Jackson Jr. is, O'Shea Jackson Jr. was Officer Barnes in Godzilla King of the Monsters. He's part of G-Team. He is trying to pitch a Godzilla anime to Legendary. If we tweet about it enough, they can make it. Yeah, it's windy and snowy. I'm sorry. Everybody stay warm. Speaking of Verdugo, what did you think of her in episode 10? Orca, I felt like Verdugo was like very weirdly underplayed. She had one scene really, and she went from being like, okay, Tim, you've got a point. All of the things you're saying is totally right all of the time, to just being like, get out of here, man. You're fired. I get that her priorities were on the emergences. They were potentially facing 6 emergences. And I get that was the fear, is how do we stop 6 Titans from waking up? Which I'm wondering if season 2 is going to explore the fact that that's unresolved. Probably it should. But then she was just like, whatever. Goodbye, guys. I'm focused on my mission. I don't care about you anymore, Tim. You bore me. She was never really on Team Tim, which was always strange because he was always right. The one time she was on Team Tim was episode 7, and you thought moving forward from episode 7 she'd kind of give him some leeway, and she does in episode 8. And then she just shows back up and she's like, we're moved on. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, other than the O'Shea Jackson anime, I don't really care about any other animated stuff in the MonsterVerse. I thought the Skull Island anime was a fine King Kong adventure. I thought it was a really bad entry in the MonsterVerse, and I've thought about revisiting it just to see how it holds up, and I don't want to. I had a good time watching that show with my little brother, and watching it alone, I don't want to watch it alone again. That's going to be, I just thought that show was kind of a slog to get through. After episode 7 really changed my perspective on the whole show and made me realize that, man, they just didn't they didn't care too much about continuity or the universe they were telling stories in at all. What if Doug is a young Anguirus? I would not like that. They've got to be their own characters. Imagine if Serizawa appears in episode 10 just as the pod lands on Skull Island. He says Kong if Kate asked what the alarm was. You know, I don't need Serizawa. I would have preferred Serizawa to have a much more subtle cameo. I don't need him working with Apex or anything, unless you're talking about Ren Serizawa, in which case that would be awesome if Ren Serizawa was the one who walked out and was like, boom, you're with the real Apex now, bitches. We're really doing it. That'd be great. I love your videos. Can't wait for a new piano theme. Thank you very much, GojiMan54. That really means a lot to me. The next piano theme I'll be doing is Divine from Godzilla -1. That's the next one. Then probably Unscathed from -1. Maybe I'll try and learn the Monarch main theme. That's a pretty cool one. And then I guess I'll have to think about what comes next. So someone asking about a physical release for this show. I would love a DVD box set. I don't know if Amazon has ever done physical releases for their shows. I think that's going to be something that we are not going to be getting. I think we're not in luck on that end. When are you going to watch Gamer Rebirth? Childish. I don't know. I unfortunately got myself into nearly daily uploads. Yeah, what did I say? Did I say Apple? What did I say? I meant Apple. What did I say? Apple TV. They don't do physical releases to my knowledge. I don't think Apple TV Plus does physical releases. I don't think that they did Ted Lasso. Maybe they did. Maybe they did a Ted Lasso Blu-ray. I don't think they did a... Oh, I said Amazon. I don't think they did a Ted Lasso Blu-ray. I don't think they did a C Blu-ray. Yeah, I don't know. What was I talking about before that? Physical release? I just don't think we're going to get one. Oh, Gamma Rebirth. Oh yeah, I got myself into basically near daily uploads. I don't have time to jump into a brand new show like that at the moment. Until I can get myself on a slower upload schedule, which I'm working towards because the daily is killing me. Yeah, I don't want to jump into a new show. Do I think Kong will gain any new powers by the end of Godzilla X Kong? Probably not. I don't think so. Lightning powers, I'm sure, is what you're hoping for. I think it's too late for that. If they introduce it now, it's going to be weird. I don't know. I don't think that he will. Yeah, Execute Order 69, a ton of stuff, man. Through the toys specifically. I didn't get anything through the toys specifically, but tons of people in the comment sections, tons of people on Twitter. People go out of their way to ruin stuff because they know I don't like that stuff. Yeah, all the time. Can't wait for Godzilla X Kong. I think they're rushing it a little. I agree. Why'd they move the release date up? Have you been keeping track of the trailers? They need more time to cook that movie. Alright. See ya, Chesto. See you, man. Good night. What do you think Godzilla does in his free time? Well, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, we are told that Godzilla goes back to his Hollow Earth temple and sleeps. That's how he stays so young. That's how he stays alive for all these years. In Godzilla Dominion, the comic book that's definitely not canon, Godzilla just kind of swims around and punches monsters. So I guess it just depends on what's going on that year. Can Godzilla take a break, or does he got to get out there? I don't know. I think it's going to depend on what's going on. I love how Axis Mundi is just the hyperbolic time chamber. Yeah. What is that? Is that Doctor Who? I think that's Doctor Who that you're talking about. How do you guys feel about time dilation in the MonsterVerse? I'm going to put that as a... Let me do a poll just for fun. I'm going to call it time travel, though. How do you feel about time travel in Monarch? How do you feel about time travel in Monarch? It was awesome. Oh, it's Dragon Ball. Gotcha. It was okay. Could have been better. Keep it out of the MonsterVerse. Let's say bad. Keep it out of the MonsterVerse. Personally, my take on it is that it's all right. I think it's okay. I thought that the idea that they had time dilation it allowed for some interesting storytelling. And I thought the way they presented it was really cool because they presented it in a very horrific way. They presented it not in like this kind of... They didn't just brush it off. They weren't just like, oh, that happens, and then move on. They took the time to be like, there is enormous consequences for this. It is not a good thing that this happens. It's really damaging to the people that it affects. That's what I really loved about it. It wasn't played as just something that happens. It was played as something that happened to them. That was great. As far as it conceptually, I really don't like it because it doesn't land with the other stuff we've seen. Godzilla King of the Monsters, they get sucked down a portal into a Hollow Earth cave. They get sucked into Godzilla's temple. When they're thrusted back to the surface, they didn't wind up in the future. In Godzilla vs. Kong, they enter the Hollow Earth and exit the Hollow Earth multiple times in the movie. It's not like Kong, when he jumped into the Hollow Earth, wound up landing in Hollow Earth 10 years after he jumped in. And it's not like Kong, when he jumped into Hong Kong from Hollow Earth, wound up in the future and already caught Godzilla fighting Mechagodzilla. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about Godzilla vs. Kong. That being said, I thought it was presented in a really compelling way. Dr. Graham doesn't get mentioned in Legacy of Monsters. No, she doesn't. She doesn't get mentioned much at all. People mostly forgot about her, despite the fact that, oh my god, it was Sally freaking Hawkins, and they ate her. What a waste of a character. And I get that she probably didn't want to come back for sequels, and so they probably needed to write her out of the film. But what a disrespectful way to do it, I felt. E4, Keiko's reaction to finding out how much time passed was freaking brutal. What a phenomenal performance. That is honestly maybe an award-winning performance right there. That was incredible stuff. Marie Yamamoto's reaction to finding out that she lost her entire life and everybody she knows is either old or dead was so fucking sad. I love that stuff, man. I don't know how you get to Axis Mundi. I don't know where it is. Where is it? In Godzilla vs. Kong, we see a hyperscan of the Earth. We see straight through it. We see the entire planet. We see the scan that Apex took of the whole planet, and you see the Hollow Earth in the planet. Now, if we are being told that Axis Mundi is an outer shell, that there's a second layer on top of that, wouldn't that have come up in the scans? Or is it a donut that stretches around Hollow Earth and is accessible from this part of the planet and this part of the planet, but if you go from here or here, you're going to miss it? Or is it a different dimension? Here's my theory. My film theory. All right? Follow with me here, guys. Pacific Rim. There is a breach at the bottom of the ocean. It leads to the world of the monsters. The only way to get into the world of the monsters in Pacific Rim is to ride a monster through it. You can't access the portal. If you try and breach the breach, nothing happens. You can't get through the rift. However, a kaiju can get through the rift because it reads their body signatures. That's how you get in. That's how you get out. Humans can go through it. Riley Beckett goes through it at the end of Pacific Rim 1 by himself. It's also a world to the world of the monsters at the deepest part of the planet. My film theory: whoever was writing these episodes of Monarch Legacy of Monsters vaguely remembered those rules from having seen the movie Pacific Rim, but they couldn't remember what the movie was, and they assumed it was Godzilla vs. Kong, so they added the rules to the MonsterVerse after the fact. And they're like, that's how it worked in the last movie, right? No, it didn't. No, it did not. I don't know, man. How would that work? How would why would you need a monster to open the portal to the Hollow Earth? Why did that make any sense? You could just be able to go into it. I don't know. That's my big rant on that. Titan stabilize the portals. Since when does that make sense, though? Why would a Titan stabilize the portal? Was Kong in the portal when in Antarctica? No, he was not. They flew into there and the portal was already activated. Kong goes in it first. Yes, sure. But like, what? They could just fly into that thing, right? They didn't need Kong to get into the Hollow Earth. They needed Kong to show them where the power source was. So I didn't understand why they introduced this new thing. Yeah, I get that it could be a pocket dimension. That's just too high concept for the MonsterVerse at the moment. The MonsterVerse hasn't done any of the groundwork to say that that could happen. That's because Access Mundi is not actually a different part of the Hollow Earth, where it's not actually in their ecosystem. Yeah, I get that they say that it's not. They say it's parts of our planet, parts of their world, together. Isn't that just Skull Island? That's what Skull Island was. It was parts of their world come to us. So what is this deal? What are you talking about? You know what we also never got the answers to was, what was Shaw talking about? Remember in episode 4 when they wound up looping all the way around to back to where they started, and they were like, whoa, how did that happen? We started in a different spot, we went to a different spot, and then we wound up in the same spot? How did we get here again? And Shaw was like, that cloud we flew through, this place, it's stranger than you think. It's stranger than any of us know. What does that mean? That was never explained. What was he talking about? Man, so weird. The entrance is also different when Godzilla enters in Godzilla vs. Kong. Yeah, that I didn't have as big of an issue with. That was more of an aesthetic portrayal of it. Just like how you could say that's still the Hollow Earth, it's just a different aesthetic, and that'd be fine. There weren't any portals when Godzilla just did a hole. Was it because the breath did a super stabilizing or something? I don't know, man. I don't know it. I don't know how that works. I don't think Adam Wingard knows how that works. And I certainly don't think the writers of Monarch Legacy of Monsters knew how that works. How could the writers of Monarch Legacy of Monsters have known how the Hollow Earth portals work when clearly Adam Wingard didn't know that either? Because you're so right. There wasn't a portal when Godzilla blasted a hole to the Hollow Earth. There wasn't. It was just a hole in the ground. Barrel, I haven't switched the pull yet. Drail? Did I say your name wrong? I don't know how to say your name. Sorry, man. I didn't switch the pull yet. It's just still cooking. Let me check it. All right, everybody, if you're still in the stream and you haven't voted in the poll, vote in the poll really quick. Once it gets to 100, I'll end the poll, but it seems like we already know our answer. Access Mundi is not actually inside the Earth. It's a different dimension. As we know that Ghidorah came from space, so what humans call space is actually another dimension. I don't know of that logic. I don't know if you can connect those two things. That doesn't actually fully track. Yes, Ghidorah came from outer space. He didn't come from inner space. All right, we have hit 100 votes. End the poll. Let's get those final results. Where'd they go? Did I just delete the poll? I don't know how to check that stuff, actually. Oh, there we go. There it is. So 37% thought it was awesome. 34% thought it was just okay. 14% thought it was bad and should be kept out of the MonsterVerse. 13% thought it could be better. Those numbers aren't as high as I would have expected. I would have thought more people would have been in support of it. Did you watch the pitch meeting for Godzilla vs. Kong? I'm gonna need to get off that wormhole thing that we're done with. Okay, I understand what you're saying. No, I did not see that. I did not watch the pitch meeting for it. They should have just said it was a really dense pocket of Hollow Earth that caused gravitational warping when you... Okay, here's what I think they should have said. They should have said there is a dense pocket in Hollow Earth. It's the point you're going to be sucked to like going into a drain. Like you're getting whirlpooled, sucked to it. You know how every time they enter a Hollow Earth portal in this show, as they're entering, you see one portal split off and then they get sucked down a different one? I think that's because one of those portals leads to the legit Hollow Earth from Godzilla vs. Kong. The other one leads to Axis Mundi. What they should have said is, unless you have a way to navigate, not just enter the portal, but unless you have a way to navigate the portal, you're always going to get sucked to that one really dense pocket that's Axis Mundi. It's kind of closed off from the rest of the Hollow Earth, but it's still a part of it. That's all you needed to say, is that this is a part of the Hollow Earth that's a really dense pocket of it, and you're just going to get sucked there unless you have a way to navigate, which is what the heave allows you to do. That makes a lot of sense. But instead they went with it's a different dimension? Oh, man. Oh, thank you very much, Kiryu. Thank you very much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate that. He says, I wonder what Keiko was doing during Godzilla vs. Kong. How she was number one Godzilla. Oh, how she was the number one Godzilla fan before anyone else. I could see her defending Big G during that film. I don't know what any of these characters were up to during King of the Monsters or Godzilla vs. Kong. I guess they were off doing their own adventures. Maybe season 2 of Legacy of Monsters will tell us a little bit about that stuff. I don't know it, man, but I would like to see these characters return in a more prominent capacity in the films, especially Keiko. She feels like she could be a great person to take over as the leader of Monarch. Is Mark Russell the new canon leader of Monarch? How did that happen? The guy who hates Monarch in King of the Monsters can barely stand it and only barely begrudgingly rejoins it by the end of the film? You're telling me that man is supposed to be the man that leads the entire organization now? Why did they do that? Monarch, elect better officials. What if Axis Mundi is beneath the Hollow Earth of the Hollow Earth? How would that work? It's really sad. We need to just like 15 minutes to think and come up with a serviceable solution. I feel like oftentimes when it comes to like a big plot hole that exists in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, it really only does take about 15 minutes to solve it. For instance, episode 3, they have radically altered the portrayal of Castle Bravo. 15 minutes of thinking about that, and they could have gone, oh, well, what if this is not the first time? Or what if this is an unsuccessful test? What if this isn't legitimately Castle Bravo? Well, hey, you've just solved the issue. Am I the only one thinking... Because, like, how do they paint a freaking picture of Godzilla when they've never seen him before? They just knew what to paint? That drives me crazy. Daneska, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Am I the only one thinking that the monsters are far too big? There are no trees big enough, even on Skull Island, for Kong to hide behind or climb. That's something you're going to run into when the monsters' heights have increased from like their standard Toho sizes of about 164 to 300 feet, and now they're almost at 400 feet. Toho didn't even stick with the 300-foot thing for long. If you remember, they scaled Godzilla back down to about 60 meters by the Millennium series. And yeah, when you pump the monsters to that height, the environments aren't going to be there to support them. You know the reason that that happens, by the way, the reason that there are no trees big enough on Skull Island for Kong to hide behind, and the reason it really doesn't look like there's going to be giant Hollow Earth trees in Godzilla X Kong the New Empire for the most part, maybe there's a couple, but for the most part, the reason that happens is because you still need actors in a jungle walking around. And if you're going to have trees the size of a building, well, then there's no point in placing your actors in a natural environment. Now that you need to do everything in post. So that's the reason that you're seeing the jungles just aren't big enough to support the kaiju that are in them. But it's okay, because the MonsterVerse has explained that the titans of the MonsterVerse don't actually eat the same things that you'd think. Like they eat radiation. They basically absorb it through the earth like photosynthesis. And if they're not a titan that does that, then they're a titan who eats other titans, like Kong. Kong is a titan who eats other titans. Godzilla is a titan who photosynthesizes radiation. I'll catch this later if you leave the recording up. Gotta go. Take care. Sounds good, Dadzilla. Thank you very much, man. How do you feel about Kong's cameo in the episode? Man, I loved that stuff. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was awesome because it called back to that original 2016, 2015 test footage that they did for SDCC of Kong. That was super cool. I like whenever they do like deep cut stuff like that. Yes, Kong does eat fish, but that's in one scene. Kong eats a titan like 4 times in all of the different stuff. Even Kong's chowing down on that giant crocodile in the Skull Island show. Yes, radiation is the main meal. Fish and other stuff is just snacks. Basically, I assume. That's kind of like a dessert. Like I don't think it gives him much sustenance. What's up, Saturn Dusk? How's it going, man? D-Man, what are your top 3 favorite MonsterVerse titans, knowing you guys aren't probably going to like my list. Knowing Kong is up there. Also, what's your favorite Godzilla soundtrack? Also, what time dilation storyline? Also, like the time dilation storyline, I thought they did it really well. Masters. Top 3 favorite MonsterVerse titans is obviously Kong, Godzilla, and Mothra for me. Big Kong guy in the MonsterVerse. Then I think Godzilla's pretty rad. I love this version of Godzilla. If Monarch Legacy of Monsters' portrayal of Godzilla was still the current portrayal of Godzilla in the MonsterVerse, it would be a bit more of a run for their money on who I like more between Godzilla and Kong. I do not like Godzilla's personality in the Godzilla vs. Kong movie. I think it's inconsistent. I think it does not... from scene to scene, Godzilla changes his entire personality depending on what the filmmakers wanted him to do. Is Godzilla the force of nature out to restore balance looking for Mechagodzilla, or is he just a bully? And that just kind of depends on which plotline we're following at the moment. Godzilla in Godzilla King of the Monsters was portrayed as like a warrior. Like he felt really noble. He felt more noble in Godzilla 2014. And then this show has restored him to being kind of like just an animal, a force of nature, a noble warrior. And I freaking loved it. So cool. Yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong does not feel like the same Godzilla from previous films, but my list definitely goes Godzilla, Kong, Mothra. What am I saying? Kong, Godzilla, and then Mothra, because I also really loved the 2019 portrayal of Mothra. I thought she was incredible. As far as what my favorite Godzilla soundtrack is, it fluctuates. Sometimes it's Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla from 1964. Oftentimes it's the 1954 soundtrack. At the moment, it is -1. -1 is good stuff. Admittedly, I've not been keeping up as much as I like. COVID also wrecked my sense of time. Did you graduate yet? Execute order. No problem, man. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you got to catch back up. I definitely miss the old community that I used to see a lot back in the day. A lot of the community that we used to have back in the day in 2019 has often moved on, and that's kind of sad because I liked the community back in the day. But you guys are all great, and if I start streaming again, hopefully I can get to know a lot of the new faces better. I did graduate. I graduated in May, and it has felt Incredible. That's why you've seen me posting again, because I graduated, so I'm back to being a YouTuber. Wasn't Kong overeating and destroying Skull Island's environment or something like that? E4, that has never, ever, ever been said. The humans destroyed a lot of the Skull Island environment, and so Kong had to be moved out of it. What's up, EK? Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Childish, I always appreciate when you tune in, man. Ricky, thank you very much, too. I appreciate all the OGs. I'm still here. Been here since 2016. Goji fan, I appreciate him, man. Same with you, Kaiju Beyond Belief. Your name has changed a lot over the years, I feel like. Didn't you used to be Kaijuzilla Beyond Belief? If we can just drill a tunnel to the Hollow Earth, then what's the whole point of having these portals? Great question, brother. I don't know. I don't know it, man. No, I don't like you guys less, Observer. Observe nature. That's funny. I'm shocked at how many people joined this channel from the Shin Godzilla Face in the Tail video, but man, I appreciate you guys sticking with me. That's a bold one to jump on board with. I know it's like my most viewed video. I will never quite understand how, but woo! Was never that active, but I followed your channel since 2016 too. Thank you very much! Letty? Is that how you say that? Letty? Lite? Man, I'm horrible with names. Oh, man. That freaking Face in the Tail video is iconic, I guess. Oh, what's up, Agno Goji? How you doing, man? Yeah, you're an OG as well. I appreciate it. Yes, I agree. I agree about feeling the scale of -1. Joe, Godzilla did turn up with his new dorsal plates in Legacy of Monsters. I didn't really feel like they needed to explain why. It's just as he grows over time. He got the dorsal spines chipped in the battle with the Muto. That's what the Monarch Legacy of Monsters directors have told us. Legendary themselves has told us specifically that it happens in the fight with Muto Prime. Jinshin Mushi blows his spines off his back, and so new ones grow in. Michael Doherty supports that as well, so that's the reason. I found your channel during Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode reviews. I liked your videos a lot. Wow, that's great to hear, Ryan. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate that. I've really loved being a week-to-week part of everybody's viewing experience. It has been so much fun, and I am so sad to see it go. I'm going to try and keep the discussion on Monarch Legacy of Monsters going for a while. I can't wait to do like theory videos, stuff like that, but I really appreciate everybody who's been able to tune in with me week to week. It has been so much fun. Yeah. I can't believe 2014 turns 10 next year either. That is crazy. What's up, Joey? That is crazy. Yeah, Godzilla did have beef with Kong because of a war that Kong had nothing to do with that. Kong had nothing to do with the war, and Godzilla still picked a fight with him anyways. When Godzilla blew the hole to Hollow Earth, the hole was so deep we didn't see the portal. The holes are always that deep, though. They always lead to Hollow Earth. So you should always see the portal. Maybe it just didn't have time to form because it was so brand new. Maybe the gravity... Okay, guys, let's put our thinking caps back on and explain more of the MonsterVerse plot holes. But let's just say for a second, the whole Godzilla blasts in the Earth is so new that the gravity hasn't had a chance to fully accumulate at the entrance points and build up the vortex between... There's so much air pressure. That's what it is. there's such a difference in pressure between the above and the below worlds that tunnel in the middle has so much pressure that it takes a second for the pressure to fully create those vortexes. That's what it is. Well, thank you very much, Jim3572. Thank you very much. What is that you donated? What is that? I don't know what that even means. What is the one heart thing? That's crazy. Do you think any of the gargantuas are in the Hollow Earth? You know, the first... Oh, it's the first super. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's neat that it gives a little badge for that. Do you think there are any gargantuas in the Hollow Earth? You know, I think if filmmakers like Michael Dougherty had stuck around, who are dedicated fans of the Toho films, I think you would have seen things like the gargantuas turn up. I actually feel like Godzilla King of the Monsters had the most unfair shakedown of like any Godzilla movie, because it came out at a time when there was no incentives to go to a Godzilla movie. Avengers Endgame had just come out. There was Aladdin, which was $1 billion picture. Like, the amount of $1 billion pictures in 2019, or $2 billion pictures for that matter, it was crazy. People were in the theaters all the time, and Godzilla just kind of got squeezed out because it's not as popular of a franchise as some of the other stuff. And I feel like that sent the wrong message to Legendary, where they felt, oh, people don't want to see the Toho monsters. That's not a big draw. Well, it's not that it's not a big draw as much as it is a horrible time to release a movie. I actually think Godzilla X Kong of the New Empire just shot itself in the foot by moving itself up 2 weeks. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they pushed the release date. I feel like they had a good release date where they had it. But they moved closer to Ghostbusters. I just feel like Godzilla King of the Monsters got a really unfair shakedown, so they panicked and thought the issue must be Michael Dougherty, and the issue must be the monsters weren't as marketable as we thought. Had the movie come out at a better time and made more money, I think you would have seen Michael Dougherty stuck around in a more official capacity, and I think he would have brought in a lot more of those monsters, as he was constantly talking about how he wanted to bring in the gargantuas. Then we've got Adam Wingard, who is a fan of like a handful of Godzilla films big time, and then just generally chill with the franchise overall. And you can tell, because you can tell which movies he's into based on the films he makes. He's into the late Showa era. And I don't think he cares as much about the obscure monsters like the gargantuas, although I'm sure he will say that that's one of his faves, because it tends to be one of everybody's faves. But that's kind of what I feel like happened with the MonsterVerse. I feel like we could have had a lot more Toho monsters if King of the Monsters was released at a better time and wasn't so over-bloated with the marketing campaign, because they kind of killed themselves with that. Daneska, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Since I get your point, but humans are so little compared to them, contrary to Godzilla -1. Does it make sense that they even acknowledge humans? Komodo dragons don't even acknowledge ants. Dennis, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that the issue with making Godzilla so large is that you have removed the personal connection between Godzilla and the humans. If Godzilla stays on a more grounded scale, he can have a much more personal relationship with the humans he's interacting with. Godzilla -1 was the ultimate proof of that. I don't think that's the only thing that matters. I think Godzilla -1... It's not that Godzilla is small that makes it more personal. What makes it more personal is Godzilla has intention and interaction with the cast. What makes Godzilla of the MonsterVerse feel so distant and removed is that his intentions are just so beyond humanity that his interactions with us are so few and far between. That's why the moment in King of the Monsters when he's looking at the submarine stands out so powerfully, because he's coming face to face with the humans and there's a direct contact there. I feel like that's what you lose. By making Godzilla so big, oftentimes filmmakers don't think to add those human moments with Godzilla interacting with us on a personal level. But yes, it doesn't make sense. Godzilla is so large, he shouldn't be caring about what the humans are up to. I mean, it makes sense for Godzilla because he's that smart. And it makes sense for Kong because he is that compassionate. But Ghidorah eating Dr. Graham, why? That gives him nothing. That is like me chowing down on an ant. One single ant. I'm going to grab that ant and I'll pop it in my mouth and swallow it, and I won't even have known it entered my mouth because it's so small. Why did Ghidorah eat Dr. Graham other than to just get her out of the movie so that Sally Hawkins didn't have to be on set more? There's no reason for that. Ghidorah's so large that shouldn't have happened. Because you're right. You're right. I think that is the issue with the scale. But I think it's also just a lot of the times they forget to add those moments where they make the connection more personal. What's up, Nuts for Kaiju? How's it going, man? Nice to see you again. See, you're another OG. It's been a while since I've seen you. Maybe I saw you in one of the previous streams, but it's nice to see a lot of the old faces popping back up. Thank you very much, Execute Order 69. Dude, you're on fire tonight. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. May 16th, 2014, the date that will be the date that will be with me the rest of my life. Being a child fan of Godzilla 1998, I never imagined all of this. The fandom is my home. December 13th, was it? 2013 was like the date that changed probably most of our lives, but definitively changed my life dramatically. The day the Godzilla 2014 trailer came out, ever since then, like it completely altered the course of my life. I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Seeing Godzilla 2014 in theaters was incredible. And so I know exactly what you mean. And I cannot believe that was 10 years ago. That is, that's brutal. Has it been 10 years? Oh no, man. Good to hear, Adam. Good to hear that they're flavorful. Hey D-Man, was wondering what your favorite Godzilla designs are. Mine is -1 MonsterVerse Godzilla SOS Goji. And also, what is your opinion on -1's budget compared to the Legendary films? Oof, that's a loaded question. My favorite Godzilla designs, they always shift. For the longest time, it was King Kong versus Godzilla from 1962. At a certain point, that shifted to Godzilla from 1964. Then it shifted to Godzilla from 1975. Then, when I started the YouTube channel, it had shifted into two very strong, firm camps of Godzilla from Mothra versus Godzilla, 1964, and Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Biollante, 1989. Then, very recently, and I've never really, because I don't answer that question a lot anymore, then it was Godzilla 1991. I felt like the changes made from 89 to 91 were all for the better. It's -1 right now. -1 is my all-time favorite Godzilla design. I think it perfected Godzilla. I thought that it took everything that was Godzilla and made it angrier, sharper, more aggressive, more exaggerated, cooler. I thought it was rad as hell. For a while there, Godzilla King of the Monsters held my favorite design of all time. -1 kind of put back into perspective for me how much I really love the 90s Godzilla. And now the MonsterVerse Godzilla slipped a little bit. But I think of the MonsterVerse Godzillas, personally my favorite might very well be Godzilla from Legacy of Monsters. I think he just looks perfect. He's got the perfect 2019 design restored, but they've slimmed him down. The only thing that I don't love about it is the overbite. That is a little strange, but you only see it for literally one single shot. He has an overbite for one shot, and other than that one shot, he looks perfect. As for the budget of -1 versus the Legendary films, I get a lot of flack for saying this. and I don't know why I get a lot of flack for saying this, but the under $15 million budget for Minus One isn't something to celebrate. It is something to say the people who worked on that movie were incredibly passionate, and we should celebrate their passion, their dedication, and their skills and talents for making the movie as good as it was. As for why the budget is as low as it is, it's because the Japanese film industry does not pay their professionals to the level that they should be paid. They're underpaid, as are most people in Japan. That's why their economy is so in the dumps. That's why when I go there, it's the cheapest thing ever, because nobody's making money over there, and especially, unfortunately, the filmmakers who are not being paid competitive, and they're being overworked, as are a lot of industry professionals in Japan. So I think you got to acknowledge, if you want to bring up Minus One's budget, you've got to acknowledge that the reason the budget's so low isn't because the movie should be that cheap. The reason the budget is so low is because the professionals who worked on it were not paid the wages they deserved, and they should be paid better and compensated better. If that movie was made in America, I almost guarantee you Godzilla Minus One would be pushing a $70 million budget. I almost guarantee it. It's just that it was made in Japan, where you can do things for really cheap. I think they need a director for the MonsterVerse because I really want... I think they need... do you mean a new director for the MonsterVerse? Because I really want this universe to succeed. I am fine with different tones, but to build up for future movies without things just popping up. What they don't need a director, because I like having new creative talent cycle in and out of the MonsterVerse. Kong Skull Island is, I just think, so much better than the rest of the MonsterVerse films. And I'm also glad that Jordan Vogt Roberts didn't return, because he doesn't have a passion for Godzilla. So I wouldn't want him to do a Godzilla movie or a movie with Godzilla. If Jordan Vogt Roberts did Godzilla vs. Kong, the fandom would fucking lose their minds. They wouldn't be able to handle it because Godzilla would get his shit rocked. Because Jordan Vogt Roberts is a Kong guy. So I'm chill with them cycling directors. What they need is a stronger creative at the helm of the MonsterVerse who's not directing the movies but is overseeing them, the way that you have James Gunn doing for DC, the way that you have Kevin Feige doing for the MCU. And because the MonsterVerse is so much smaller scale than the DCU or the MCU, you don't wind up with the overbloated mess that both of those franchises are. Even though the DCU hasn't properly launched yet, it's already becoming a bloated mess. I was 11 when I saw Godzilla 2014. Now I'm about to turn 21. Woof. Yeah, man. I was 13 when Godzilla 2014 came out, I think. And now I'm 14 now. Time flies. It really flies. You prefer the smaller head than what Adam Wingard did to Godzilla. Joey, do you mean the new Godzilla? The new evolved Godzilla? Is that what you're talking about? I also, by the way, preferred the smaller head. I thought that the King of the Monsters design was awesome. Anime industry is even worse for artists and other production staff. Saturn Dusk, yes it is. It's horrible. Brown Table just made a great video about that, by the way. If you want to see a good video about the current state of the animation industry, go check out Brown Table. Brown Table's got you covered. King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong is the G-Man's head bigger than King of the Monsters? King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong's difference is the G-Man's head is bigger than King of the Monsters. Joey, I got what you're saying. Okay. I don't know about that. I don't know if the head is any smaller or bigger. I personally like the Godzilla vs. Kong design better. I know that it's essentially the exact same model, but they've colored it different. Godzilla vs. Kong has a lot more brown in it. There's a lot of different texturing as well with the way those browns bring out the depth of that design. I think and oranges too. I think it just looks cooler. Daneska, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your well-elaborated answers. Glad you understood me well. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. The workers need more pay and less hours in the film and animation industry in Japan. I think that yes, absolutely. They need longer production schedules, as we do in America. We need longer production schedules. We need pay that is representative of the work that is done. Do you have any hopes for... Wow, that bumped. Do you have any hopes... where did that keep going? Do you have any hopes for Disney Plus's King Kong show if it ever gets made? Do you think it's dead in the water? Childish. I think the fact that we haven't heard about it in like a year plus, probably dead in the water. Remember when that was going to be a show that came out in the year 2017 on like Stars or something? That show's had a really painful production schedule. They have never made it very far with that. It's just an expensive show, I think. I think they're like, wow, that's going to be expensive. Monarch Legacy of Monsters may have just changed the game and made it more likely than ever before that we could see that we could see the King Kong show. Sorry, got distracted by Saturn Dusk's comment. Let's see. He says, also, shout out to you for mentioning that Charles Cornell video during the Transformers review. I watched it a couple times and rabbit holed his channel for a couple hours more afterwards. That Charles Cornell video is so funny, and I never realized how absolute bonkers the Transformers theme song was until I watched his video explaining how strange it is. And now every time I've watched it, I cannot get over how goofy that stuff is, man. If you watch Adam's videos for his previews for Godzilla versus Kong, he explains why he made Godzilla head bigger. Joey, I don't know what you're talking about. The head's like the same size. Daneska, thank you so much for the double dono. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Japan really deserves a lot of credit for its for creating that connection between the humans and Godzilla in -1. I haven't seen it yet since it's not available where I live, but I already consider it a classic that everybody should see. Yeah, well, whenever you get the chance to see it, go see it, man. That movie is incredible. I don't want to... I'm going to try not to get too much on a -1 kick in this stream just because the focus on the MonsterVerse, but -1, I think, has crafted the most compelling Godzilla and human dynamic that we have seen in a film, because it's not just about Godzilla is a thing that we are reacting to. He's also reacting to us. More so than just Godzilla reacting to the humans around him, the humans are reacting to the way that one another are reacting to the Godzilla around them. It was just this perfect web of everybody's decisions matter, everybody's choices matter, including Godzilla's. Actions have consequences. If you don't piss Godzilla off, you're maybe not going to get killed. If you really piss Godzilla off, well, then you're done. And you're not just done, you're atomized. I thought it was great. The fact that Godzilla spares Shikishima's life at the beginning of that movie, what is that stuff? That's great. Why don't we get more stuff like that? That's very King Kong stuff. That's the kind of reason why I like King Kong so much, is because King Kong is a character who often reacts to people. People react to him, and then people react to the way that one another react to him. It's great stuff. I tagged you in a post I found on Twitter. I think you might like it. Orca, I will try to check that out after the stream, but I really don't like going on Twitter, and I really try not to. So maybe I won't. I really try and avoid Twitter these days. Twitter landscape, it's just disgusting. Fans there are awful. Yeah. I do remember when the Oxygen Destroyer was a teeny weeny little bitty part of Godzilla King of the Monsters. And yes, I agree with every other human on the planet that they wasted the Oxygen Destroyer's potential in the MonsterVerse. I also just don't think it matters too much, because I don't see them using the Oxygen Destroyer well. What are you going to use it for in the MonsterVerse? You're going to use it to destroy Godzilla? Really? You're going to kill Godzilla with the Oxygen Destroyer? And if not, well then what's the point of it? Did they include it because it was a cheap nostalgia bait? Absolutely. But it was in the whole sequence. That whole sequence is so well done. That's the last of our concerns. Like, it's just such a small part of it. It doesn't weigh the film back. It doesn't weigh that sequence back for me. Did it waste the potential of the Oxygen Destroyer? Yes. Is there a better use for the Oxygen Destroyer in the MonsterVerse? Probably not, because you can't kill Godzilla with it, and if you're not killing Godzilla with it, then what are you doing with it? So they probably just should have called it a different thing. The way that you justify it is if Godzilla, or if the Oxygen Destroyer has the consequence of creating Destroya in a future movie, you've just justified the use of it in King of the Monsters. You've added a level of weight to it that it didn't have before. That's how retconning should work, is helping to support the things that came before it rather than go against them, which is what they've done so well with Bill Randa in this show. I don't like the changes to the USS Loudon storyline at all, but I thought that the things that it did for Bill Randa's character, as we saw, that's actually not why he's such a bitter man. He's so bitter because he keeps losing. That was so impressive. Episode 9 of Legacy of Monsters, I thought, did such an incredible job showing the transformation within him, as you finally see the final straw is pulled and he just can't take it anymore. That was good stuff. Then they do a lot of other retcons that is not good stuff. Yikes. Yeah, I'd love to see a Godzilla versus Rodan fight. That'd be great in a future season of Monarch, maybe. I saw a lot of people say my name. Please, please. Atomic Blazilla, I gotcha. I haven't watched the episode yet, but I just wanted to pop in and say hello. Also, would you ever consider uploading your streams after you finish streaming? I miss a lot of your streams due to work is why. Yeah, I don't take my streams down. They go into the stream category. So when you click on my channel, there should be like a videos category. There's a shorts category. There's a live streams category. It's going to be in there. They're going to be in there. I don't take them down. I think I've only taken maybe one down recently. One of the ones that I did, I think I felt like wasn't good enough to keep up. So I took that one down, but on the whole, I always keep them up. So yeah, you can go check that out. Frail, it was over before it started, buddy. Shinomura never mattered. Ever. That comic book never mattered. The most it ever mattered was when we found out that there was going to be a character named Lee Shaw in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and they basically did that to definitively finally put the bed to rest on that comic book, to say, no, it didn't happen. None of it happened. Shinomura's gone. He was a cool Titan. He was actually really awesome, but he also never made a lot of sense to me. Shinomura never made a lot of sense in the from the perspective of like, how did it work? It was like microorganisms that created a kaiju that could split into multiple. It never really made a lot of sense to me. It wouldn't get vaporized by the atomic breath, but it would get vaporized by an atomic bomb. It always felt a little outlandish for the MonsterVerse. It flew weird. It didn't really feel like a real creature. It felt like a ghost. As cool as it was as a Godzilla villain, it never felt like it fit into the MonsterVerse. As far as Muto Prime goes, literally nothing in Legacy of Monsters has undone Muto Prime. Muto Prime could still exist. It's fine. For fans who like Muto Prime, you can still pretend it exists. For fans who are now like myself, who just can't admit that the extended canon matters at all, unless it's for the purpose of trying to engage in a lore discussion, well, we know that it doesn't matter, because the filmmakers didn't read that stuff. So, it's over. We all love your content. Thank you very much, Atomic. I really appreciate that. Are you for reals, man? You're lucky that it's not 2019. I'd charge you for this. I can't do a Palpatine impression. Is this the voice? Execute Order 69. That's about the best you're gonna get out of me. So, you better appreciate that. Cut some of the highlights into a video of this stream. Well, with this weird aspect ratio, with the camera being all small, I don't know about that. Yeah, no problem, Cockroach. I gotcha. Thank you very much, Kaiju Nut. I really appreciate that. Third super chat. Third stupor on a live stream. Maybe that's the third time you've ever done that. Maybe that's what it's saying. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. During the fight with the Ion Dragon, which was around 90 seconds, Lee just stands watching. Well, I get what you're saying, but I felt like it made sense. He is just about to be killed by... he's just about to be killed by the Ion Dragon. Right before he dies, Godzilla appears. And he's standing there in complete shock. So it makes sense why he doesn't move right away, because Godzilla just appeared. That's pretty shocking. Then Godzilla starts barreling towards him. You'd think that Shaw would have the sensibility to be like, I can't just climb back in. We're in danger. What if I need to try and run away and lead Godzilla away? Then the fight starts to break out. He's ducking for cover. He's trying to avoid the damage. And then Godzilla blasts the guy across the room with the atomic breath. I just thought it was... I thought it made sense why that'll happen. My issue with it was... the guy was already... Here's the pod being sucked in. He's already holding on to it. How is he slowing it down? They're all being sucked in together. What are you trying to tell me? That how is he slowing it down? Also, let us not forget one episode before, he flew through that portal from the exact same starting position. He got sucked into it off of his own 2 feet, and now you're telling me that the pod with 3 people inside of it, that's also a metal pod, somehow weighs less and can get sucked into the portal more efficiently than the one man? Shouldn't he also have been sucked into the portal and then just been launched in a different direction than them? What are you doing? He should very well show up on the surface and be like, oh no, another 10 years have passed. And maybe he shows up post-Godzilla versus Kong. Post-Godzilla, maybe he shows up in Godzilla X Kong the New Empire when we're like 15 years into the future. Because what, it's like a 5-year time skip, then a 5-year time skip, then a 5-year time skip, I guess. I guess he'd be 9 years in the future. Godzilla X Kong takes place 9 years after the characters are right now. Characters wind up in, like, what, 2017? So 9 years later. Yeah, you could just say Shaw winds up 9 years later. Why not? "90 seconds for the audience. Everything happens at the same time for the characters." To Paleo, absolutely, man. Well, he didn't... Here, I want to run another poll. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I have a very strong opinion on this. Valerie, I have no idea why they time jumped again in Godzilla X Kong, because they can't commit to showing the aftermath of their decisions, and they must gloss over it to get on to their next plot. They don't have any commitment to the storylines they just told. They just want to move on. That's the real reason. Okay, here's your new poll. Everybody watching, please vote in the poll. It's going to pop up in the chat. All you got to do is just click the answer. Everybody, please vote in the poll. Did Lee Shaw die? I'm only giving you 2 options here. Did Lee Shaw die? Yes, he fell to his death. We all saw it. Or no, dude's alive. I have a very strong opinion on exactly why I think the things happened the way they happened. I think it is very obvious to me why they did it that way. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And I love if you guys guess. I've already said it on Twitter. Have I said it in this video yet, in this live stream? Try and figure out why I think they did it that way, because I've got a very strong opinion on why they did it that way. Kaiju Nut, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. D-Man, could you explain how the Godzilla 2014 film has elements of silliness? It was something you said in one of your recent videos. Well, what I think you're referring to is in one of my recent videos, I discussed how Whenever you add a monster battle in a movie, there's always a certain level of silliness that does not exist when you have just one monster. And the reason for that is because when you have one monster, you don't have to suspend your disbelief as much. And it's doing a big destruction. It's like a force of nature. You only have to suspend your disbelief as far as the one monster will ask you to. Sometimes the monster is very silly, and then you lose your suspension of disbelief. But on the whole, it's treated with a different level of weight and gravity. Where it becomes semi-silly is when you have a monster that you're supposed to be rooting for in battle, like, let's say, Godzilla 2014. Godzilla's fighting the Mutos. There's moments in the fight with the Mutos where you're supposed to get excited. You're supposed to get hyped. You're kind of bouncing up and you, oh, the blue light just struck Ford's face. Oh, it's going to be the atomic breath. Oh, he's doing it. Yeah! You're getting excited. You're like, oh, there it comes. The Muto's flying right at him. Godzilla, get it. And then Godzilla tail swaps it into the building. And you're like, oh, he took it down. You know, Godzilla's got the female Muto. He rips her jaw open. And you're like, oh, God, is he going to break her jaw? And then it's like, oh, my God, that's crazier than I could have imagined. You're rooting for the battle. And it's like a sports game at that point. You're involved on it in a completely different level. Now you're no longer just a spectator being like, oh, you're like, oh shit, Shikishima, get her, and go out. Get into the alley, please. Like there's a level of fear. You're not excited. You're not like, oh, Godzilla, blast that city apart. I mean, maybe you are, in which case, that says something about you. But there's such a different level of engagement where you can be like, oh my God, this is intense. Is the boat gonna get away in time, or is Godzilla gonna chomp down on the boat and they're all gonna die? Or you're like, oh, fuck him up, Godzilla, beat the shit out of the Ion Dragon, throw that guy into the mountain, make him do the Angry Bird scream another time. It's just a totally different level of engagement. And there are moments that you're kind of supposed to laugh with the film. When Godzilla tail swaps the Muto, that is a funny moment. That's a punchline. The punchline to the joke of, oh shit, Godzilla's about to get beaten up. That thing's coming in hot. And then you realize, no, it isn't. That's the setup. The setup is this thing is going to attack Godzilla. The punchline is Godzilla was ready for it and slaps the thing's head so hard it gets killed. The setup is the female Muto's about to kill Ford. The punchline is Godzilla spits down her throat until her head comes off. That's what I mean when I say when there's a monster battle, there's almost always a level of humor to it. I can think of maybe one single occasion, maybe one, where that isn't the case. I think I can, unless you're just talking about like a not very engaging kaiju fight like Godzilla the Planet Eater, where Godzilla and Ghidorah are wrapped up in each other, then I could see the argument that no, that's still portrayed pretty grounded. They're not doing, you're not. But then Godzilla starts ripping the thing's jaws apart and blasting Ghidorah out of the sky, and it's this triumphant moment. So maybe that one still has it. I can actually only think of one single occasion, where a kaiju battle didn't have that kind of, my thinking face is fantastic. Well, thank you. I can only think of one occasion where a kaiju battle didn't trigger that response in me. All right, let me get into all this stuff now. But I appreciate the question. I really appreciate that. He's alive if they want to use the character again. We've already learned with Keiko that no body equals no death. Let the character die off. Why would you want the character to die off? You're crazy. No corpse until otherwise. Godzilla stepped on him. Leaves room open in case Kurt Russell doesn't want to come back. But if he wants to come back, then there you go. What's the thing you said about not seeing a character die on screen? Well, there you go. Makes sense that they kill him. Then there was a twist in season 2 if he's alive. Keiko will be the same age when he comes out. If he comes out of that portal and it's played by Wyatt Russell all of a sudden, that is gonna piss me off. Why did he age in reverse like Ant-Man in the first time travel test in Avengers? That would be so silly. Shaw's status is speculative. He's an important character to die. He's too important to die. I think he rode on Godzilla's dorsal fins. That'd be crazy. He was too heavy to pull Keiko into the pod, not that he was slowing down the whole pod. Again, why not wait until you're fully into the portal and then let her go so she can get sucked away, and then you'll just wind up... He's already done the jump to the surface. He's done it before. He's already done it. I'm having a hard time comprehending the portals in Monarch, especially since Godzilla put a hole in the planet, yet there is still time travel. Yeah, we discussed it earlier in the stream if you want to hear the theories on why the time travel exists. That was something we talked about towards the start. Okay. All right. My big theory on if Shaw's alive. Should I end the poll here? No, keep voting, guys. If you see the poll, please take a vote in the poll. We've got 88 votes so far. Try and get that up to 100. I want to see what you guys think. Currently, he's alive is leading the poll 76%. But if you see the poll, please take a vote in it. Yes, episode 10 definitely justified Keiko's survival. I thought that the way they portrayed it as such a heavy and emotional situation was so fantastic. It was so good. All right, guys, we're at 91, 92 votes. Come on, vote in the poll. My theory on it. Okay, here's my theory on it. My theory is absolutely Shaw is Schrodinger's Shaw. Is he dead? Is he alive? That is entirely dependent on if Kurt Russell wants to come back. And I think they're waiting because they're waiting probably to hear how much he's asking to be paid for a season 2. If he wants a lot more money than they can afford, then he might die. They're also probably waiting to determine his value as a character. How many people watched the show for Kurt Russell? I think a lot of people probably watched the show for Kurt Russell. So I think they're kind of giving it a minute and being like, well, let's find out exactly how much this character's worth. How much does this character do for us? I also think it just leaves the door open to where they could explore future plot lines trying to find him. But they don't have to. They don't have to be tied down. They could either do that or they don't have to. But I really think it's dependent on if Kurt Russell wants to come back. Now, I think he's so alive. And here's why. He's already survived not one, but 2 falls to Axis Mundi. This is no big deal for him. He's falling out of the portal for a 3rd time. He's going to be fine. He's already survived this fall twice. Not only that, but they make a point of seeing that the gamma emitter gets knocked off. It's separated. Then their pod gets sucked into the portal. The gamma emitter, it falls back into the Axis Mundi. Obviously, that's done so that he can rig it back up and have it produce the gamma signals to alert them that he's still alive. Are they going to wait until the end of season 2 to do that? Maybe. I don't know if they'll wait that long. I could see them touching on that much sooner, but maybe it's going to... Because Kurt Russell is an older actor. I don't know why you would just wait, keep him in limbo and not use the character. Well, Kurt's still young enough to do the action scenes. He's still kicking ass in this show, and he's doing great. I would not wait around for him to get older. I would keep using the character while I have him. If they did this as a really roundabout way to introduce him to the movies, where the movies are set in the future, that would be a bold choice, but they could do it. Or they do what the other guy said in the comments and they introduce, they bring in Wyatt Russell's version of Lee Shaw to the modern day. Saturn Dusk, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Saturn Dusk saying, "Will you drop in some more music / sound related video essays? I feel like your opinions and takes in that area are always great but underappreciated." I have a plan on my list of upcoming video. I have a list of like video essays or deep dives that I want to do, which I'm really loving doing, by the way, and I really appreciate the support I get on that stuff, guys. It means a lot to me. That's the type of content that I've always wanted to make. I've always felt kind of boxed into the news videos, and I really appreciate the support I've been getting on the video essays. If you haven't seen the newest video essay I posted, please go check it out, all about how What even was the newest one I posted? The Rodan one blew up. If you haven't seen the Rodan one, please go check that one out. That one was a lot of fun to make. The one I just did was about -1. It was about how -1 came out at this such an opportune time and how I feel like it redefined what Godzilla can be, and made it very clear that the two sides of Godzilla can coexist with each other. You can have this silly stuff, but if you're gonna have this silly stuff, I think you need to anchor it with something serious, and that's what -1 did. If you're gonna have a serious Godzilla, I don't think you need to anchor it. There's no need for the silly. I don't think there is. I think the silly can be done. But when you do the sillier side of Godzilla, I feel like you must anchor it, and that's what -1 did so perfectly. That's what the other video was about. So go check that one out too. All right, we can end the poll now. And then Blade, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Why did Godzilla start to run to the Med's main character during the episode 10? Huh? Why did Godzilla, you're asking, why did Godzilla start to run towards our main cast in Monarch Legacy of Monsters when he appears through the portal at the end of episode 10? So the reason he does that is because they've got the gamma burst emitter that is signaling him. He's not there to help them, nor is he there for the Ion Dragon. The Ion Dragon just so happened to be there at the same time as him. Godzilla himself, he was the one showing up there to respond to the gamma bursts the same way that he did back in 1955. All he was doing was just trying to find out what's making that sound. It's the same way that in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Ghidorah is not attacking Fenway Park just for no reason. He's attacking it because the orca's pissing him off, and then he chases Madison because she's carrying the orca, not because she's Madison. That's why it happens. So Godzilla's there for the pod. He's not there because he's trying to find out if they're all right. I think if Godzilla really cared about if they were all right, he probably would have gone more out of his way to protect them. Godzilla just doesn't care about that stuff. I meant he will come out in the future, which will be I see, which will be days for him. She will be old. He won't be young. Oh, I see what you're saying. They can get a happy ending together where she's in, like, he will show up in, like, 2060 and she'll now be old, and so he gets to live happily ever after with her. That'd be a very sad Captain America-esque ending for... It'd be bittersweet, I'll say. It'd be a very bittersweet ending if that's how those characters ended. If Keiko hasn't aged physically in Axis Mundi, then she would be able to live up to 150 to 200 years old, since she's currently in her 90s but looks 30-year-old due to gamma exposure. How old is Marie Yamamoto? I don't actually know how old she is. She's about 40. Wow, she looks super young. I actually was expecting her to be in her like late 20s to early 30s. I thought she was about the same age as Anna Sawai, who's 31. Anders Holm is 42 years old? That's crazy, man. Who even is this cast member? South Korean actress. When was she in this show? I don't remember her. Yeah, I mean, I guess Keiko could live for like 200 years technically. Probably not 200 years. She probably live about 150. No, maybe you're right. I don't know. She could live for a long time. So, out of 100 people, 76% think that Lee Shaw survived. I'm clearly on your guys' side. I think he's alive. Get off the screen. What Toho monster would you want to see for season 2? Man, I was really hoping for, no, it's just a missed opportunity. The Ion Dragon should have been a Toho monster. I think that it could have very easily been Megaguirus if you had said that the endoswarmers from episode 1 were Meganula. Is that the first form or is that the second form? Meganeuron. They're Meganeuron. If the endoswarmers in episode 1 were Meganeuron, when they show back up in episode 8, they're Meganula, and then they fuse together, or there's already their daddy or mommy in the Hollow Earth that is already fully grown. That's Megagirez. That's such a natural integration of a Toho monster. I do agree. The Ion Dragon is basically just Gauss in the MonsterVerse, and that's cool as hell. But Gauss isn't a Toho monster, so they obviously couldn't say that. But if I had to do a Toho monster in season 2, man, I'd give... It's just a shame that we jumped, because there could have been a great episode where they discover Ghidorah trapped in ice. That would have been such a haunting reveal. You don't have to use Ghidorah because he's already frozen, but discovering him in ice would be so like, ooh, that's heavy. Rodan can't really wake up yet, but man, I would love a Rodan solo episode. Maybe you flash back to the past before Rodan housed himself in that volcano and you find out what that little guy was up to before he goes into the volcano. Then you could tell a story with Rodan destroying stuff way back in the past. That'd be cool as hell. What if Monarch originally discovers Rodan in the 1950s and they chase him around and then he ends his journey by going, and they lose track of him. But then later they find out that he's in the volcano and like what? When do they discover him? Does that happen in the 90s according to the Monarch timeline? I think in the 90s is when Rodan goes into the or when they find Rodan in the volcano. It's been a minute since I've read through the Monarch timeline, but also I guarantee you I've read the Monarch timeline more recently than some of the people involved with the MonsterVerse. So that's a cool idea. I'd like to see Mothra get an episode as well. Really what I would like to see is them to flesh out the monsters that we know about. I would really like to see them flesh out Mothra and Rodan, because I don't think a Mothra or Rodan solo movie is going to do well. You do a Rodan solo movie in the United States market, and like 6 guys turn up to see it, and you lose all of the money that you put into making it. You do a Rodan episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and now that becomes a driving factor in why people go to watch the show. It'd be a huge deal. Thank you, Valerie, for pointing out Rodan was discovered in 91. There you go. You could easily say that they lose track of Rodan in the 50s and imply that he's been into a volcano. We all know where he winds up. We've all seen it. I would love if they were to do that. I would love if they were to start giving solo episodes to the Toho monsters that you're not going to make a movie out of, because it's just not going to do well. Crazy how in 10 years Anders Holmes ages into John Goodman. Those were some stressful years for him, man. He was under a lot of stress in those years. You have no idea how hard that was on him. That is a crazy thing that you've just mentioned. If someone from like the 1600s fell into a portal and then returned to the surface in the 20th century, the fact that we can legitimately do that in the MonsterVerse is so wild to me. What a wild concept to introduce into the MonsterVerse. That's crazy. I think the fight between the Ion Dragon and Godzilla is brutal. Is probably more brutal than Godzilla 2014. I also like the Kong cameo. I knew he would be in it because Shake Man said he would be. I have no fucking clue who Shake Man is, but he sounds like a little leaking bitch. Sounds like someone who leaks stuff. But yeah, it was. I agree. It was a more brutal fight than 2014. I think it was probably the most physically brutal fight of the MonsterVerse. Godzilla did not play with the Ion Dragon. He got down to business and fucked that guy up in a minute. He put that guy in the dirt. Actually, I don't even think the Ion Dragon's dead. He just ripped its arm off and then threw it into a hole. I think the Ion Dragon's just crawling around like desperately in pain. But that guy he's probably fine. It'll heal over. He's just not going to be very helpful in the future. He can't fly anymore, so he's probably going to die from other means. Maybe he'll bleed out, but yeah. We saw Kong at the end, but he looks the exact same as he does in Godzilla vs. Kong, so this takes place after the comics with the bat. That's where the storm is? No, this takes place before the comic with the bat. Oh, yeah, I guess the atomic breath really cooked him up, huh? Yeah, this takes place before Kong fought Kamazats. This is before that. Kong looks like he does in Godzilla vs. Kong, probably just because that's the model they had on hand. And so that's why he looks like he does. I'm fine with it. I thought he looks good. Does Kong need to have a radical design change between the years of 2017 and 2024 in the MonsterVerse? Not really. He doesn't need to have that much of a change. I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised the Ion Dragon challenged Godzilla as well, but you got to remember, it's because Godzilla's not the king of the monsters yet. Godzilla hasn't earned the title of king of the monsters. He won't do that until 2019. So Godzilla being the Alpha Titan, that's just more of a theory at the moment rather than it hasn't been proven yet. So the Ion Dragon taking a stab at him, that's fine. It's just a monster fighting a bigger monster. Vinny, if I had to guess, I would guess that because they fell into Hollow Earth, Axis Mundi, because they fell into Axis Mundi, they probably and they did it like their bodies fell in. They didn't take the pod in, so there was no navigation involved. I would imagine they land in the year 2017. And when they leave Axis Mundi, because they're in the pod that can navigate it a little better, it's like aerodynamic and built to navigate those vents, then I would imagine that they just get spit out in the same year that it was. So I would assume Godzilla fights the Ion Dragon in the year 2017. But also, think about that for a moment with me. Godzilla can swim through time. Godzilla is, in the MonsterVerse, Kong can do it too, by the way. Godzilla and Kong in the MonsterVerse can somehow navigate their way through Hollow Earth portals so efficiently that they can defy the gravitational inversion and swim through time, which also means the Heaves can do the same thing. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it being the brown furred 2021 model. That's a great Kong design. I think it's super cool. I like the brown fur more than I like the gray fur. I could get into another rant about Adam Wingard's decision to treat Kong like an old man if I really felt like it. Because why are they treating Kong like an old man? He's a Titan whose lifespan lasts for thousands of years. So why is it that all of a sudden the guy's an old man? Because Adam Wingard wanted him to be like old Elvis. That's why. Why does he have gray fur now? I don't know, man. You'd think that the Hollow Earth energy would rejuvenate the guy and keep him young just the same way that it does for every other Titan. But no, we gotta treat Kong like an old man. I don't love that. It really annoys me. Kong, biologically, should be like a 20-year-old. Biologically. If Kong was, someone just got home. If Kong was kind of an angsty adolescent teenager in 2017, you'd think that, or 2017, in 1973, if Kong was like an angsty teenager, you'd think the guy's only in his early to mid-20s by the time we get to Godzilla vs. Kong. Do you believe that the dragon in episode 10 is the same dragon as the Loden dragon? I know you expressed your confusion on it on Twitter earlier. I think it is supposed to be the same dragon. No, my hot take is that they didn't know it was going to be the Ion Dragon. My hot take is that that is something that happened last second when it was supposed to be a different monster that shows up in the final 2 episodes. I think it was, because Lee Shaw has no acknowledgement in either episode that that's the same monster he saw in the Philippines. He doesn't acknowledge that. Keiko doesn't acknowledge that. And then Apple TV stopped referring to it as the Ion Dragon, which maybe you could just say means it's part of the same lineage, the similar species to the Ion Dragon, but it's not literally the same creature. I think it is the same creature. I think it just grew up. It clearly has a shorter lifespan than Godzilla. So I think it just grew up. It's here to fight Godzilla now. It gets its ass whooped. Otherwise, why are you introducing two of the same monster in this show? But they don't even address that. Like, Keiko doesn't look at it and go, oh, that's the same species as the Philippines dragon. She looks at it and goes, it's a Titan. Because I don't think they knew. I don't think that the cast knew what monster they were reacting to. I don't think Apple TV had made up their mind yet. And that's why if you look on the website, it doesn't call it the Ion Dragon in episode 9 and 10. It calls it just simply a scene from the episode. What's up, Noob Master? I really liked it. I thought it was a great episode. I really enjoyed the episode. I have a feeling next season we'll be building more of an Apex show build up to Mechagodzilla cameo. I completely agree. I don't think Mechagodzilla can cameo yet, but I think you can see the beginnings of the development of a Mechagodzilla. You could easily see Mechagodzilla in development, but he can't obviously be finished yet. Maybe we could see the first activation of him where they try and turn him on, but not all the pieces are there yet. That'd be pretty cool if like parts of the face were built. They don't have the eyes yet. Like Ren doesn't really have control of him. Really all it is just a big base for a laser to fire out of. That could be interesting. Yeah, too many Hollow Earth bananas and red berry juice. That guy is Kong's apparently living the high life down there. Thoughts on the baby red Kong being bigger than teenage Kong from 1973? My thoughts are that they clearly didn't think about that because it's really silly and ridiculous, but they clearly did not think about that. They didn't mean to do that. That wasn't a conscious decision that they made. That was something that happened when they wanted a cute design to sell toys. They really wanted that to be the case. They wanted to sell some toys. They wanted to sell plushies, and they wanted a figure that was marketable probably to very young children and to girls. So they went with a very cutesy design, and they never stopped to consider that it's the same freaking height as teenage Kong. I would have much preferred if baby Kong in the new movie, Suko, I believe his name is, Suko, whatever his name is. I don't remember it. If that baby Kong was 50 feet like the original like King Kong portrayals, or even 25 feet like the original King Kong portrayals, that'd be pretty sick, man. My thoughts on Pink Godzilla. I don't Godzilla 1985. Not my favorite figure or toy or figure toy. Well, that's what it was made as. Not my favorite design. I think it's okay. Oh brother, look who just popped in the chat. Thank you very much. More like Sook on D's nuts. What a triumphant return for the D manager. That's so funny. Childish. Does anybody find the Doug meme funny, unironically? I've never found that meme to be entertaining. I find Kevin memes funny from King of the Monsters. I think that's funny. I don't find the Doug meme funny. I thought that the character in Godzilla vs. Kong had a certain level of humor to it, with the big googly eyes. I thought that the meme wasn't one of the more impressive memes. And the fact that they're doubling down on it and making it canon, I think is so odd. Daneska, thank you very much again for another dono. I really appreciate that. Do you think the MonsterVerse is already planned, or are they making things up as they go like Disney did with Star Wars? I think you know the answer to that. But they had, obviously, they understood where they were headed with Kong Skull Island. They knew that the end game was Godzilla vs. Kong. That's why there's set up for King of the Monsters. They also knew what was coming next. Those three movies flow really well into each other. Kong Skull Island to King of the Monsters to Godzilla vs. Kong are very coherent. They do, obviously 2014 is a bit of an outlier because they didn't know they were going to do sequels to that one. They certainly didn't know it was going to be part of a cinematic universe. As far as what they're doing now, absolutely not. They have no clue where they're headed. There's no way they know where they're going, because if they knew where they were going, the Skull Island anime wouldn't have come out. The thing just had nothing to do with anything. If they knew where they were going, I think Monarch Legacy of Monsters would probably set more things up for the future rather than trying to explain things from the past. Glad to see that I'm not the only one who just doesn't understand the Doug theme. Sometimes I think a Doug meme is funny. Like, do you remember when that guy photoshopped the poster for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire was the photo of all of the people running away on the beach, and they called it Godzilla vs. Kong: The Rise of Doug? That was funny. But making it canon? No, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Not merchandise funny. I agree. I don't know why they're making merch of it. And a toy of it, I guess that's fine because it's just another little monster. I don't even think the toy looks particularly good. I've had a really hard time tracking that thing down. Most of the Playmates toys are so freaking hard to track down. You know what I've had a lot of luck tracking down is the RC Godzilla. The really big RC Godzilla. I've been able to find that thing multiple days in a row. I have not been able to find a Scar King, a Shimo. Which one is it? Shimo? I don't know it. I haven't been able to find a Shimo. I haven't been able to find a Doug and a Suko. I haven't been able to find a Battle Roaring Godzilla Kong or whatever the other one is. Oh, I forgot they did the comics Kickstarter with the Doug plushie. I forgot about that. Thoughts on Keiko doing that? Wait. Thoughts on Keiko doing that savant level math in her head to calculate that the current time is 2015. Execute Order 69. I don't think that was the math in her head. That's fine, man. I know people who are really, really wicked good at math. Like, I know people who would also be able to do the same math in their head. I knew someone once, she had like a superpower. You could just say a date. You could be like, what day was it on March 1st, 1956? And she'd be able to tell you on the calendar what day it was, just off the dome. It was really impressive. So I think that's nothing. That is nothing. Oh man, Shimo the toy? Yeah, of course. I've seen all of the toys are in stores. It's not like there's any surprises. Like, I've seen the pictures on the back of the box, obviously. I've seen the people have it on Twitter. I've seen the people have owned the toy. Also, I knew about Shimo for like a year now. Maybe not a year. Okay, I knew about Shimo for... Wait, when did I find out about Shimo? Probably in about May. I think I found out about Shimo in about May. And nowadays, people just spam the comments with spoilers, so a lot of big stuff gets spoiled. It's really pisses me off. Is there a history of Apple TV Plus shows making it? Yeah, we talked about the potential chances of getting a DVD or Blu-ray of Monarch. I don't think it's likely. I don't think that there's a likelihood that we are gonna see a Blu-ray of it. Maybe Legendary or Toho will put out a MonsterVerse collection or something that would include it. I don't think Apple TV likes to do that. Is Napoleon getting a Blu-ray? If Napoleon's getting a Blu-ray, I could see them doing that. I guess if Napoleon's doing a Blu-ray, then maybe. But Napoleon was in theaters. I don't think Apple TV often shares that stuff onto physical media. I don't know. I guess I'll look it up right now. Let me find out. I don't see. I don't see. I can't. Is this official or not? I see one Blu-ray for season 3 of Ted Lasso, but I can't tell if it's official. I don't think it is official. I don't think Apple TV does Blu-rays. Yeah, man, I can't stand the leaks. It really pisses me off. And I hate that people spoil stuff just because they can. That really pisses me off. I found out about Shimo because I know a lot of the people who have been close to the movie. Concept artists whose work wasn't used. People who are friends with the concept artists. Obviously, I'm friends with KDM. I know some of the other people kind of close to the movie. And a lot of the time, people get really excited to tell me stuff because they've either learned something that they're very excited about or because they think I will get really excited about learning something. So a lot of the time, the friends I have who are far more in the production side of the movies will tell me stuff because they're excited that they just heard this. Maybe they heard it from a friend of a friend. Maybe they heard it from the direct source. But oftentimes they would spoil stuff for me, and I finally had to just be like, hey, everybody, please quit telling me stuff. I really don't want to hear it. I finally had to do that in like July or August. Maybe in August was when I was finally like, okay, we're done. I can't take it anymore. And then all of the leaks went so public that I can't go anywhere without people spamming them in my comment sections or in my Twitters. Like, people tweet me leaks all the time, and it just sucks, man. Or people just be spamming Twitter with leaks like it means nothing. And so you'll be scrolling looking for like info on how -1's doing at the box office, and then you're hearing leaks about the MonsterVerse. It really is frustrating. I forgot about the Playmates Godzilla that you can peel the skin off of. It's so weird. I think it is so funny. I love it. I think it is such a goofy thing that they made that toy. I'm so here for it, but it is so odd. So weird. I really loved, I saw somebody who took the skin off their Godzilla and forced it around a Mechagodzilla to make a Mechagodzilla in disguise. That was epic. If I found another Mechagodzilla at the store, I would buy it and I would do the same thing. Favorite episode of Monarch. It's really hard for me to rank Monarch episodes at the moment, but if I had to pick my top faves, I'm picking episode... no order right now. I'm not going to put them in an order, but episodes 2, 9, and 10 were my favorites. Those were my favorites of the show. Episode 6 is probably my 4th favorite. Yeah, kids are going to love that Godzilla that you can take the skin off of. Man, I would have freaking ate that thing up as a kid. I would have loved that. Oh, God. I did not need to read that comment, Execute Order 69. That's yuck. Yeah, it's probably the reason that they don't do home releases is because if they do home releases, they know that there's much less likelihood that people will subscribe to the service when they could just wait it out. I don't mind them not mentioning the comics events at all because those comics events are supposed to have happened behind closed doors. The only people who would know about that is the higher ups in Monarch who were there. Emma Russell, Serizawa, Dr. Graham, they would know about that. But I don't even think that Godzilla's battle with Muto Prime was public information that within Monarch itself. I don't even think Monarch was fully aware of that. As you see, Mark Russell's like, how'd you guys know where Godzilla was? And they're like, well, if you know where to look, you know where to find him. I think that Godzilla was dredged up out of the waters or into the waters from his desert by Hiroshi, and then was just swimming around, and then eventually found his home near Castle Bravo. But I think like some people in Monarch know, the people at Castle Bravo probably know. Other than that, probably not. Probably not too many people know about that stuff, so I don't need it mentioned. Do I think Scar King will have an interesting backstory? I have no idea. I don't know much about. I don't know much about what Scar King's deal is. I don't know why he does what he does. I'd imagine he's just a hunter who's probably eating people. That'd be my guess. He's probably just gonna be like. Honestly, he could just be a reject, kicked out of the Kong tribes because he was weird, different, a mutant. And his response was to take over and become the bad guy king and get his revenge. I don't know it. Did KDM mention Monarch didn't really have any correlation with Godzilla X Kong? Did he mention something about that to you as well? No, I don't ask KDM stuff like that. He and I don't talk about stuff like that. We just talk about like, what'd you think of the new episode? Oh, it was cool. I don't like to pry. I don't want to know stuff. I'd rather just watch the movie and have a good time with the movie and be like, oh, it had nothing to do with Monarch. Weird. I'd rather do that than know going in. Are you ever going to do the Kong Skull Island movie before it became a part of the MonsterVerse? What are your opinions on the DeVito Kong? Are you asking if I'm ever going to review like the scripts for the other Kong movies that were never made? What are you asking? Sorry, Adam. What other projects would you like to see from the MonsterVerse outside of movies? I'm still waiting on actual video game. Yeah, I mean, a Godzilla MonsterVerse video game would be fantastic. That Warzone crossover was so much fun, and it really proved that a fantastic Godzilla video game can exist. A human perspective, and then there's also an alternate kaiju storyline would be so much fun. I'd be all into that. White Wolf, you're asking a hard question to answer. Do you think the MonsterVerse is getting too close to being styled like Marvel movies, or is this just the normal style? So, I think the MonsterVerse is at its breaking point. Personally, I think we've gone about as far as we can go. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, I think you're going to see is going to have a lot of pushback. I think people are going to be like, that was so cool. What a rad movie. It was so much fun. You're also going to have a lot of people being like, what was that? Why did they do all of the weird things they did? Like, can we go back to the way things used to be? Especially with Monarch Legacy of Monsters being received pretty dang well and being so fresh. To go from Legacy of Monsters to Godzilla X Kong is such an enormous jump. Those two things are so different. And it's going to really highlight the tonal inconsistencies of the MonsterVerse. I think that the MonsterVerse is now at its stretched point where you're going to start to see backlash occur. I don't think we can go much further into the silly before we break, the same way that the Showa era eventually backpedaled after Megalon. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is still a crazy, outlandish Showa era movie, but it was tonally a step back. Same way that Terror of Mechagodzilla was like 3-4 steps back from where we were. You know, I think that that's what's going to happen with the MonsterVerse. I don't think it's that it's becoming necessarily too styled like Marvel, as much as I do think it's becoming too stylized. I guess that's my perspective on it. But I do think Marvel has had an undeniable impact on these movies and has really shaped their sense of humor and has really shaped just how outlandish they're willing to be. Kong is mid-30s by human standards, but hundreds of years old. This shows how young Kong is, and is the reason why he is gray, because he's physically still old, but young in terms of human standards. I don't know if that's going to be the case, where it's like, because he's so literally so old in terms of the timeline that he's graying, you'd think that that'd be a biological feature. Not, your hair doesn't gray just because time passes. It grays because your body, its internal clock, has told it that it's time to gray. When the MonsterVerse ends, how long do you think it will take before Toho lets another entity take a stab at a new Godzilla take? Yeah, I've thought about that a lot recently, because I've personally said in recent videos that I think that after a couple more MonsterVerse movies, I'd give the MonsterVerse a break. I think that Toho would be absolutely willing to just let America start with a brand new Godzilla continuity as early as 5 years after the last MonsterVerse film. I don't think they'd want to wait, because the American movies bring in so much money, and because they don't have to put a lot of money into making them. The American studios do that. So there's no reason for them to deny anybody else. I don't think they would let anybody else outside of America do it, just because Toho has yet to do, from what I've seen, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I just don't know, but from what I've seen, Toho has yet to do big business outside of the United States like that. That's pretty big. Good to be here. Thanks again for the shout out last live stream. Of course, Alpha. I'm really glad to see you again, Alpha Dragon Wolf Warrior. How you doing, man? Yeah, an alien invasion would be another step up. I don't think it's needed. I don't think the MonsterVerse should ever go that way. If a Gigan shows up at this point, so be it. The MonsterVerse has already gone so far in the direction of stupid that I can't complain if they do something like Gigan. And I really like Gigan, but man, what a weird monster. So I could very much see a Gigan showing up, but as far as like a full alien invasion where there's humanoid aliens, I don't think the MonsterVerse is going to do that. That's a lot. That's a lot for... It was a bold step to do Thor as the 4th MCU entry, or the 3rd? Come out before or after Iron Man 2? I think it was the 4th. That was a bold step, man. I just don't think the MonsterVerse could pull that off. I don't think it would pull it off very well. Thor was at least really trying to be grounded in this weird mythological myth meets science. I think if they're going to go with aliens in the MonsterVerse, it's going to be like... I don't think they're going to have the care to try and make it... as nuanced as it would need to be. I think they'd just be like, there's aliens! And then audiences would go, well, that was a stupid one. You also have the fans getting pissed off that the backlash is ongoing. What are you talking about? I think mostly because no plan, since all they can do is either stop and actually make a plan or keep going. The MonsterVerse does not need an entry every year. They can take a years-long break to plan out what the future of these movies is going to be. That'd be so easy. They do not need to rush anything. Do one... Okay, here's the solution. Next year, do one final season of Skull Island. That's the only MonsterVerse we get next year. That'd be a little rough with Monarch Legacy of Monsters, because you've now done a TV show, so you're going to be expecting a second season sometime soon. But the solution to the plan would be take a year off, maybe put out one season of Skull Island that has absolutely nothing to do with anything else, wrap that up, end it all. And then you're good to go. You've had a full year to plan, and it cannot take that long to plan out the general arc without fleshing out the details of where you want your story to go. Space Godzilla would be rough, man. Space Godzilla would only work if Space Godzilla no longer came from space. Because Ghidorah is already an alien. Ghidorah is already an alien that's come to the planet in the MonsterVerse. They've already said aliens exist in the form of Ghidorah. So if you were to, what I think you could do is you could take the Ghidorah DNA and fuse it with Godzilla DNA, and it could turn into a space Godzilla. Oh, Shimo. Does Shimo have crystals? I think it does, right? Is it ice or is it crystals? I think it's crystals. Does Shimo have crystals on its back? Well, there you go. You could fuse Shimo DNA, Godzilla DNA, Ghidorah DNA, fuse the three of those into each other, and boom, Space Godzilla. I'd love to see Guillermo del Toro direct a Godzilla movie. Personally, his own different version for Godzilla that's not connected to the MonsterVerse. Yes, I think del Toro could be a great Godzilla director outside of the MonsterVerse. Yeah, I think his films are a little too strange to just fit into the MonsterVerse this late in. But I do think he's an incredible filmmaker. I would love to see his Godzilla movie because Pacific Rim was such a freaking heater, man. Are you kidding me? That movie's incredible. So sure, why not? Yeah, Mew, that's why, and I agree with you. I think that a big thing that's holding them back from making a definitive plan is because they're trying to take the movies one step at a time, because if they falter at the box office, that could be it. But honestly, the toy sales for Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, I guarantee you, the same way they were with Godzilla vs. Kong, are going to outperform the movie's box office. The MonsterVerse makes unfathomable amounts of money in the merchandise sales and the toy sales. They don't need the box office to be huge. They just need to sell toys. That's why they've doubled down on making this new movie basically a trailer for action figures, because, oh my God, they sold so many toys. That's why they're doing the things they're doing. So they don't need the box office to be the biggest performer ever. But wouldn't it be nice if they focused on making a quality story that you could sell toys within? I guarantee you -1 has sold a lot of toys. Not as much as the MonsterVerse, but a lot. What is your definitive ranking of all MonsterVerse entries, including shows, and what you want to, what do you think about Kong being able to hold back Godzilla still being sedated? Yeah, Kong holding back Godzilla still being sedated is one of his most underrated feats. It's badass. Kong's a epic boy. We love him. As far as ranking the MonsterVerse movies, it's really difficult because it radically changes depending on how I'm feeling. At the moment, just probably because I'm a little burnt out of the way MonsterVerse fans approach discussing the current movies. It really tires me out. Probably my ranking goes Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Godzilla 2014, and then Skull Island. But I might put Monarch above. I might put Monarch above Godzilla vs. Kong, depending on how it holds up on a rewatch. But also, man, does that list shifts so often. So often. You're going to ask me that in 2 weeks, and I'm going to give you a different answer. The only thing that will ever remain consistent is that Kong Skull Island will be the first, and Skull Island anime will be the last. That's the only thing that's going to remain consistent. Thank you very much, so much. Every single time I see your name, it throws me off because I want to say Dennis, but it's Deneska. Thank you very much for the continued support throughout this stream. I really appreciate it. If you were in charge of the MonsterVerse since 2014, how would you have done it? Well, I would have stuck way more tonally in line with Godzilla King of the Monsters would be kind of my tone. That'd be about as outlandish as my movies got. My Hollow Earth, if I was to do one, would look a lot more like Axis Mundi than the Hollow Earth. I would have kept it far more inside with the mythology aspects. I thought that was great. I would not have prioritized action sequences. I would have prioritized the story, the mood, the atmosphere, and Godzilla as Godzilla. I think that the movies often just get so focused with all the other stuff going on that Godzilla really is inconsistent and often undervalued in the movies. I would have made Godzilla versus Kong a much, much more brutal fight. I would have definitely kept Mechagodzilla out of that movie. I would have done a team up afterwards. I would have brought Godzilla and Kong together for Godzilla versus Kong. They would beat the hell out of each other. I'd probably give Godzilla the victory because that's just the thing that should happen. But it would have been a much harder fight for Godzilla. Kong wouldn't have had an axe. Then I would have split the two of them up for a while, and I'd take Godzilla in the direction of science fiction, going very heavy on... I would go very heavy on, like, man making the monsters. That's where you develop a Mechagodzilla. That's where you do a Biollante. That's where you do a Destroya. Then I'd bring them back together for a very exciting Destroy All Monsters styled finale where Godzilla and Kong have to team up against a slew of threats. I would have also... Man, I probably would have waited for King Ghidorah. I probably would have waited a little longer just because I feel like doing Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra all at the exact same time as well as introducing a bunch of other side monsters. Undervalued Ghidorah, you killed him in one movie. I either wouldn't have killed him. I would have either... I might have just let Ghidorah kind of get away. I might have just let him get away with it. I also wouldn't have given... I would not have done the hurricane powers that he has. I don't like the hurricane powers that Ghidorah has. But I would have let Ghidorah get away. Then in another movie, I would have brought Ghidorah probably back to have Godzilla and Kong team up against him or something. Yeah, I thought the Hiya Toys figures look great, Edward. Edward N. Thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. I think that the Hiya figures look fantastic. I don't have any of them, but I think they look really good. Yeah, I would not have put the sun in the Hollow Earth. That's for sure. They sure did glance over how there's a sun in Axis Mundi. They said, don't think about it too much. I just wouldn't have done the hurricane powers because they're just a little too boring. They make every fight scene with Ghidorah look the same, first of all. Every fight scene with Ghidorah is just a storm, which is, I guess, can be cool, but wouldn't it just be cool if one of the fights was in a storm and the rest of them weren't? Also, I just think it's a little boring. It's just too easy to destroy a city when there's a hurricane and 100,000 tornadoes and a flood ripping through the city. It's too apocalyptic. It makes it so that the destruction sequences happen too fast. And a big selling point of kaiju films is reveling in the destruction. That's the selling point for like most of these movies. That's why the Showa movies did so well, was because they were always destroying a city. Gigan and King Ghidorah have a whole sequence where the two of them are just knocking buildings down for a while before eventually we get back to the action with Godzilla fighting them. And I feel like the MonsterVerse movies completely gloss over the city destruction. Ghidorah wipes through Boston off screen. DC is completely annihilated off screen. I just feel like the hurricane's too easy. Do you think -1's success will have any effect on how Legendary thinks/views about the MonsterVerse? Absolutely, but I think it's going to take a couple years to materialize. I think for sure. I think you're going to get a filmmaker, the next Godzilla filmmaker who touches the MonsterVerse, assuming there is one that is someone other than Adam Wingard. Assuming that happens, I think you're going to see them being like, my two favorite Godzilla movies is Shin Godzilla and Godzilla -1. And you're going to get a Godzilla movie that swings more in the direction of a King of the Monsters, where it's a little more Toho styled, a little less of the anime stuff. Wingard's movie very much feels like a live-action animated project, which is fine. I feel like I'm crapping on Godzilla vs. Kong a lot. I really don't mean to. I still like the movie a lot, and I want to make that clear, please. Let me acknowledge that I still really like that movie. It's just not what I prefer. It's like, I really appreciate it for what it is, but it's not the direction I would have gone. Yeah, the color filters in King of the Monsters are overly aggressive. I'd love a MonsterVerse horror movie. Biolante and Hetero, those are decent choices. Hetero would be very strange to see bringing into the MonsterVerse. But I'd be down for it. I guess at this point, I guess I'd have to be because it's somehow less outlandish than what this new movie looks to be. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'm down for a horror movie in the MonsterVerse. I thought that episode 9 of Legacy of Monsters had horror vibes, episode 2 had horror vibes, and both of those I thought were fantastic. That's the kind of stuff that I really love. Episode 4 had horror vibes, and I could go for that tenfold. I could go for a horror movie, Godzilla movie any day. Yeah, Saturn Dusk, that's a cool idea. Having Ghidorah actually have to work for the storm, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know where this whole Ghidorah takes over Ren Serizawa's mind thing started. Whoever said that's like bullshitting you guys. I've read that novelization for Godzilla vs. Kong. I've read it 3 full times. Front to back 3 full times. No, it doesn't say that Ren's mind gets taken over by Ghidorah. What it says is that Ren's mind is in the body of Mechagodzilla, and he is controlling the mecha. And all of a sudden, he feels an exterior presence as they upload Ghidorah's consciousness. Then, Ren is forced out of Mechagodzilla as the body of Mechagodzilla is taken over by Ghidorah. I don't know where people came up with that Ren Serizawa is Ghidorah thing, but that is not what happens. That's not how that goes. Can you agree that Godzilla vs. the Ion Dragon was satisfying? I feel like we need to see more of him being the king. I completely agree. Freddy, that fight was incredible. I loved that scene. I thought it was so cool. I have no idea when the trailer for Godzilla X Kong is coming out. I think rather soon. That'd be my guess. Janeska, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, man. I'm a new Godzilla fan, but I agree with you 100%. Mechagodzilla was too off-tone. They should have hired a fan like you. Well, I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me. I'd be honored to work on any of these movies in any capacity, in any way, no matter how small. Any opportunity to be a part of the Godzilla legacy is good for me. I'd love that. Yeah, I saw someone earlier mention too how many times I saw Godzilla vs. Kong in theaters. I don't remember actually what my final grand tally was. I think it was something incredible, like 15 times or something, maybe close to 17 times. I saw the movie in theaters a lot. I've watched the movie a lot at home. I love Godzilla vs. Kong. It is absolutely a comfort movie for me. But it's also a movie that if I start to think about it, my brain literally melts and I feel like I'm getting stupider. I feel like I can't overthink the movie because the movie didn't overthink itself. And that's what frustrates me about it, is that I feel like there's potential left on the floor where they could have done more with it. Yes, thank you again, Deneska. I really appreciate it. Back to back, man. The monsters should feel like gods, forces of nature like earthquakes, storms, like in 2014. Hey, if you want a movie where they make a point of that, go check out Godzilla 1984. I know you said you're a new Godzilla fan. If you want some recommendations of where they're treating Godzilla like a true force of nature, go check out Godzilla 1984, Mothra versus Godzilla from 1964. That's a fantastic one that does that. What are some other ones, guys? I feel like Godzilla vs. Mothra from the 90s does a good job doing that. Obviously, 2014 probably does it better than any, but Mothra vs. Godzilla would be my number 2 if you want a force of nature Godzilla film. And also Monarch Legacy of Monsters obviously does that, so yeah, shout out to that. I don't feel like the original Godzilla really does treat him like a force of nature. I feel like other than the scene in the typhoon, that scene obviously is definitely trying to treat Godzilla like he's literally part of a natural disaster. But other than that, the nuclear bomb adaptations of Godzilla always feel a lot more deliberate than the force of nature Godzillas. I agree. I want more kaiju blood and gore as well. That would be good stuff. This is a sad year. Matt Pat from Game Theory is leaving YouTube. A lot of Curious as a writer what your next movie for the MonsterVerse would entail if you had the reins on it. Freddie, if I had the choice to make the next MonsterVerse movie, I talked about this in a very recent video. I would do the very controversial choice to take some time off of developing the story, and instead I would tell probably a dual story with the characters from Kong Skull Island returning. They have to go back to Skull Island for any reason. It doesn't totally matter. Maybe Houston Brooks realizes that, oh my God, there is valuable flora fauna on that island that can help us cure diseases. Maybe they just are like, oh, we left a guy there. There's a guy still alive there. We got a signal from Skull Island. We got to go get somebody. Whatever your reason, I would tell a story where the characters have to go back. And when they go back, then I would tell maybe a dual story with Hank Marlowe and Gunpei Akari stuck on the island. And that story is the story of 1945 all the way to 1973. And I'd fill that out. Because the biggest missed opportunity from Kong Skull Island was that it had such an A-list cast that they have not doubled down on. Those characters are so incredible. The cast is so incredible, and they're gone. And they haven't used them again. I'd bring them back in. And while I was doing that, I would develop a very grounded Godzilla story back on the surface. I would go in the direction of Godzilla versus Biollante. I've had a really cool idea for a while where I felt like a really cool step could be Alan Jonah realizes that Godzilla thinks that the Titans need to be asleep or dead. And Alan Jonah realizes that now that Ghidorah's gone, we're in a good position. The planet's no longer going to be threatened by an alien. It's time to wake the Titans back up. But if you wake the Titans back up, Godzilla's just going to put them to sleep. So his only option is to create something that can take down Godzilla. And in doing so, Alan Jonah would create Biollante. Because he's got all sorts of kaiju DNA. He's got Ghidorah's DNA, which is self-regenerative. He's been sampling monsters over the course of these movies. Now's the time to create a Biollante. I would personally go the route where you have a female, a girl, obviously, because that's what Biollante is. You have a girl who is the victim of Godzilla. Godzilla, during the attack on Hong Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong, killed her entire family. And this isn't like a situation where Godzilla was stepping in to try and take down the big bad. This is during the fight with Kong. This is where Godzilla blasts a hole through her apartment and kills her family, and she watches as he does it. And she knows that this fight with Kong, this isn't for the balance of the earth. This is because Godzilla's an asshole. And Alan Jonah can prey upon those weaknesses to transform her into Biollante. Her anger against Godzilla can fuel Biollante into battle. And now you have a very complex situation at hand. Also, I'd make Godzilla blue again. I'd cover up the spines, and I'd make the atomic breath blue again. Because I feel like the pink is just a little distracting. Landino says the biggest missed opportunity in the MonsterVerse is not having the real Mothra Shoujin. I'm down with the King of the Monsters portrayal, personally. I think that's a better, more realistic portrayal. Axis Mundi, Hiddleston will return. Oh, you're right. Neo, you're right. We could send the entire cast of Godzilla. We could send the entire cast of Godzilla. What am I saying? We could send the entire cast of Kong Skull Island through an Axis Mundi portal and just have them spit out in the modern day. And now we've got our entire cast back. That's good stuff. I have no idea if D-Manager is still watching. That guy tends to just pop in and leave. Oh yeah, as you were saying about Matt Pat, I wanted to say, like, I watched Matt Pat leave, I watched Tom Scott leave, and oh my God, do I just so get it. I've been doing this for 10 full years now. That's most of my life. The majority of my life I've been doing this. It's a long time to be doing this. And I get it. It is such a brutal grind, especially that I started to try and do these daily uploads. It burns you out so fast. But I'm doing it because I'm desperately trying to pay off my college debt. So I'm burning myself out so that I can desperately have a shot of paying off this college debt rather quick. It's brutal, and I get why you'd have YouTubers who are like, I've done this for 10 years, it's time to go bye-bye. And I also feel like I kind of get it because the algorithm has changed so much. The videos that I produce now, if I produced the same exact video in 2019, it'd be guaranteed 30,000 views. Guaranteed 30,000. Almost every video that I posted around May of 2019 was like an all-time heater. They were all getting over 10,000, close to 30,000. Nowadays, sometimes I have videos that do really well. Sometimes I have videos that don't. But also, it took me so long to get back to this position after I came back to YouTube. Like, I really had to fight to get back to this position where... I really had to fight to get back to the position where I could have a successful channel because I was gone for so many years. And I feel like in many ways my channel's obsolete. There's a lot of other channels that have popped up since I started that are now more popular or are almost as popular, that are far easier for them to make their channels. Whether it's multiple people working on the same channel, basically reading wiki pages, sometimes in fact just reading wiki pages, producing content that is very normie friendly, where it doesn't have any real value other than to be like, did you know that in this Godzilla movie the plot of the movie happened? And then people will be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. It's really rough to like try and compete in the Godzilla space, and it didn't used to be. It used to be a pretty easy, like everybody, I pretty much knew all the YouTubers back in the day. We all came up about the same time together. There was the older guys who were doing like more impressive stuff, and to this day still are, like Matt from Monstrosities. But I guess my point is that like the YouTube culture has changed so much, even in the Godzilla community, that I totally get why so many people are leaving. It makes a lot of sense to me why you leave YouTube after doing it for so long, and also it's just a rough job. Like all I basically think about is videos. All I basically do is make videos. I wake up, I make a video, I go to bed, I wake up the next day and I start work on the next video, and then I go to bed when that's done. And sometimes I miss a day and it like completely wrecks my mood. Like if I miss a day of uploads, like it'll completely like wreck my mood. If a video doesn't do well, it can make a day go from being like a really good day to being like a really frustrating day. And so I feel like I get it. I get why people get so burnt out on the YouTube thing. I don't plan on doing YouTube as aggressively as I'm doing it right now for long. Like I said, I'm really trying to pay off my college tuition. I also need a new car, and I'm also trying to get an apartment. So it's a lot of stuff at once. And I'm trying to go very hard on the YouTube thing because it's fun. But yeah, no, I get why people would leave. And at a certain point, I'm going to dial back to making only a couple videos a week. Hopefully I can get to a position where I can make just a couple a week and I can be in a good spot. But like right now, I missed 2 days of uploads this week. Technically today, I didn't upload my video for the day either. So I missed like 3 uploads for the week. And oh my God, you have no idea. I've actually lost 60% of my viewership by not uploading every day. My channel was doing way up here every single day, and 60% of those viewers are gone now. So it's way down here again. So like, woof. It's rough to do YouTube. I gets it. Thank you so much, Kaijunat, for the donation. I really appreciate that. Ranking of MonsterVerse fights. Godzilla and Kong round 2 in Hong Kong is my number 1. Then I'm just going to do final battles, okay? Because it's going to be too hard to do other than that. Godzilla and Kong, Hong Kong round 2. Kong Skull Island, Kong versus the Skullcrawler. Godzilla King of the Monsters final battle with King Ghidorah. Godzilla versus Kong. Godzilla and Kong versus Mechagodzilla. Godzilla versus the Ion Dragon, and then Godzilla versus the Mutos. Oh, and then down there is Kong versus the Kraken. That might be my list. That might be my list. What's up, Jeremiah? How's it going? Saturn Dusk, I'm glad that you're hyped to see how the Transformers video is doing. It's definitely not doing well by the channel standards, but I'm appreciative of every single person who watched it, and I'm also appreciative because the people who watched it are like very passionate about Transformers, and so it's nice to be in those. That comment section is a very fun one to be in. A lot of the comment sections are not always fun to be in, but the Transformers one is actually pretty fun. Thanks for the recommendation. On top of symbolizing war and the A-bomb, isn't Godzilla presented as a force of nature by drumroll nature? Well, thank you very much. Man, when am I going to be able to pronounce this name without stumbling on it? What is going on with this? Deneska. Thank you very much, Deneska. Yes, Godzilla is often presented as a force of nature. Godzilla. Oh, you know another one that does a good job of showing Godzilla as a force of nature is Godzilla 2000, Godzilla Millennium. That's another one that does a good job with the Godzilla as a force of nature. Thank you very much, D-Man. D-Man. Yeah, thank you, me. Thank you, myself, for all the good work I do. Thank you very much, Joey. I appreciate it. Yes, they sure have, Jeremiah, and it's brutal. Sorry, I gotta catch back up on comments. Wow, I remember Protoform D-Man welcoming to the channel back when you were 13. Now 10 years later, you're 14 and all grown up. Execute Order 69. How? What was the first live stream that you and I interacted in? Do you remember what the first live stream you and I had interactions in? I don't remember, but I appreciate how far back you go. Freddie, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. Don't say your channel's obsolete. You are the most trustworthy channel covering Daddy G. I like the terminology there. Like I don't trust new info unless you say it. Also, watching your videos makes me feel like I'm with the boys. Oh, Freddie, I really appreciate that, man. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's super nice to say. I love being with you guys. I love doing this stuff. As I said, news videos, it hasn't been my jam since probably 2019. I think I can actually tell you exactly when news videos stopped being enjoyable for me. Spring break of 2019, so March of 2019, all of the set visits for King of the Monsters, or maybe it was like February. All of the set no, because it was around spring break. February, March, in there. All of the set visits for Godzilla King of the Monsters dropped the same day. And I went from I was caught up on Godzilla news. I was maybe 1 or 2 videos behind. I can remember being a little bit behind. But generally speaking, I was doing a pretty good job of keeping up with news. That weekend, when all that stuff dropped, I fell so many videos behind on covering news that literally to this day I've never caught back up on the original news that I fell behind on. And I know a lot of people just say, well, skip to the new stuff. The problem with skipping to the new stuff is then I'm out of the loop. If I haven't covered the news, it's because I probably don't know it. I don't check news unless I'm covering it for a video. And that was the breaking point where I couldn't take it anymore. The video essays are actually what I really love to do, and I'm really appreciative of all the support I've been getting on those recently. Back in the day when I used to try and do those, I was not getting a lot of support on them, so I didn't do them. But I am going to try to do news videos semi-consistently to try and catch back up on some of the stuff that we've been talking about, because I do enjoy doing the news videos every now and then. I just, trying to keep up with it the way that I used to was so unhealthy, where it was like, that's literally all I did was stalk Twitter, look for news, look for news, look for news. The second something dropped, save it to the folder. The second something else dropped, save it to the other folder, separate them into different videos, and then desperately try and be the first one to make the video on it. Now I'm so far behind that that pressure is gone. It's just really difficult to dig back through. I go through so many different accounts when I'm trying to find the news that I do. It takes so long to try and find news. It takes so long. It's such a lengthy process to dig up links and to find sources, especially when a lot of the new members in the community who are popping up trying to become prominent members often don't cite their sources. Then it becomes really difficult to try and track down where did this rumor come from? Oh, it comes from this interview. Oh, it's a mistranslated interview. And it takes a long time to get to the bottom of stuff. But I really appreciate that, Freddie, and I will try to do news videos more often. Tony Malone, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's super cool. What is that? Is that a super sticker? Let's celebrate their first super on a live stream. Well, thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate that a ton, and that's cool. Keep it up, it says. What is that? Is that a super sticker? I know that people have the super sticker option, but I actually don't really know what the super stickers do. Mr. Milkman. We're almost 3 hours into this stream. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. 100%. How many viewers do we have right now? How many people am I going to expose myself in front of? About 100? I'm going to say something to you 100 people that I hope doesn't haunt me for the rest of my days. Other than Kong's story arc, what else are you hoping to see in Godzilla X Kong? What I'm hoping for is just a good story well told. But 100% honest, the reason I haven't been covering Godzilla X Kong very often on the channel is, first of all, because the fan base around it I found to be very toxic. I found it to be a very combative fan base where people are hyper defensive over that movie. And any room for criticism nobody has any room for criticism. People are very aggressive against it. It's actually the first Godzilla movie since I've started covering Godzilla that I'm actually not excited for. I just don't think that it's gonna look. It just doesn't look like a movie that's connecting with me as a Godzilla fan. I very much prefer the more grounded Godzilla movies or the more middle ground Godzilla movies, and this one, it's just not. Maybe I'll love it. You know, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla from 1975 is one of my favorite, or from 1974. It's one of my favorite Godzilla movies ever. That movie is so much fun. It is my jam. Maybe this movie will have that kind of effect, and I'll be really into it. But it's the first Godzilla movie that I've seen trailers for that it just hasn't connected with me. I just haven't felt it. I just haven't felt it the way that I felt the other ones. And the more I hear about interviews of it and stuff, the more I'm like, what is this movie going to be? When I heard that the reason that they picked the color pink was because they were trying out random colors and decided that looked like it was a cool one, that's not the type of thought process I want to go into. It's not the kind of thought process I want to go into the movie. I'd rather it be like, well, we picked pink because it's the highest form of energy, you know, on the energy spectrum. Pink is the highest form of energy, is the strongest atomic breath. I don't want to hear that it was a random decision. Daneska, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, man. He says, I agree with Freddie. Well, I appreciate that. Freddie's comment is so freaking nice. I really appreciate that. The historical tie-in -1 videos are goated. Well, thank you, man. The work I did on those videos, I am so proud of. I really loved those videos. They were so much fun to make. I'm a really big history guy, and when I'm able to make videos that ties in history and Godzilla, and when Godzilla movies tie history into themselves, that stuff is my jam. I love it. That's why I loved -1. And that's what I was hoping for out of Legacy of Monsters, that Legacy of Monsters just didn't really do. All right, take care, Master Sheep. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. You know, I haven't heard from Chris in a while. Glad that people like the jacket. I've seen a couple people realize that the new one that I wear in my videos is Shikishima's jacket from -1. A couple people have noticed that. Love that new jacket. This one is like, it's been small on me ever since I got it. It's just a small jacket. But I like this one a lot. I actually bought it from a cosplay website. It was a Rick Grimes jacket. Blue vlogs. I want to start YouTube, but I'm lazy. My advice to you is do whatever you want, but don't do it to become a YouTuber. I feel like people who start doing YouTube to become a YouTuber are typically the people who get burned out the fastest. The people who start to do it just because it's a fun thing to do, a good way to engage with others, really just a fun thing for them to do just as a hobby. That's when you're going to see success, because you're not going to get burnt out, and you're not going to get discouraged by the fact that I can promise you're not going to pull views for a while. It took me I came onto the YouTube scene technically in 2012. I didn't start to get noticed until 2016. So it takes a while. It took me 4 years to get noticed. You just gotta do the things that you like. And at first I posted gaming videos of my phone filming my TV on a stack of VHSs, and I posted like once a month or something. You know, I didn't have like an upload schedule. I just posted whenever I felt like it. Then when I got into the Godzilla thing, I started to do like one video every couple months. Over time, if you're passionate about it and if you like it, you'll just start to do it more and more, and it won't become a thing where it's like, I really want to do this thing, but I'm kind of putting it off. It'll just be a thing you do. If you're wondering what I'm drinking, it's hot cocoa and honey. Because I'm trying to soothe my throat as I go. I hope they don't disrespect Kong too much either. No release date yet. I don't know where the jacket comes from, you guys. It came from a cosplay website. I would not say that the Godzilla X Kong trailer sucked, but what I would say is that what did it accomplish? Let me see how the people... There's not a ton of people in the stream left, but let me see how you guys feel about... Okay, what did you guys feel about the Godzilla X Kong trailer? It was great. It was okay. It's not great. Not great. And wasn't feeling it. Let's say wasn't feeling it. And then looked bad. Okay. There's your poll. Go vote in the poll and let me know what you're thinking here. Yeah, I you know what? I haven't watched Godzilla vs. Gigan Rex all the way through. Oh wait, is that the new one? No, I've seen Godzilla vs. Gigan Rex. I thought it was great. I think that the work that Gemstone is doing, I wish I knew the director's name. I think the work that he's doing is incredible. I have not watched Godzilla vs. Megalon. Freddie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support, man. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Would you ever try kaiju? Man, that was embarrassing. that comment's got me all choked up. You're gonna kill me over here, Freddie. That was rude of you. Why would you do that? Make me choke like that. That was rude. Would you ever try kaiju games where you have to survive them, like Mega or the upcoming VR game Behemoth? Behemoth's monsters look like MonsterVerse 1. I wouldn't try the VR one because I have extreme motion sickness, so I would not try VR. City Shrouded in Shadow was a game that I thought had so much potential. I loved the premise, but does honey go with chocolate? I don't know, but I made it go with chocolate. Tastes good. City Shrouded in Shadow I thought had a ton of potential as a kaiju survival game, but it wasn't executed very well. So I would say, yeah, I would love to. If a great kaiju game came out that was a kaiju survival game, I'd be all into that, man. I think the reason Kong is pissed in the last scene of Monarch is because Apex are doing something wrong. I hope we see Kong kick Apex's ass in season 2. I think the reason Kong was so upset at the end is because they had just summoned something from the Hollow Earth. Kong was probably just going to find out what exactly had just occurred because they just ran a very loud experiment that summoned something out of the Hollow Earth. He was probably like, what the hell's coming up on my island? Considering when normally that happens, it's because a skull crawler has just entered the surface. You made a video discussing if Shin Godzilla's tail has a face. Of course they'll get noticed. That video is certainly the biggest one I've done, but by the time I made that video, the channel was already doing pretty well. You're generally not excited for Godzilla X Kong as well. Some people are overwhelmingly excited for it. Some people think it's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Worst of the MonsterVerse because the other ones were generational. What a comment. Rewatching Godzilla vs. Kong when Godzilla is getting absolutely schooled by Mechagodzilla is so much more personal when you think of it as Ghidorah getting a little trigger happy. I love the fight with Mechagodzilla and Godzilla. It is so funny. I love Godzilla just getting absolutely pounded. It is so much fun. Okay, Saturn Dusk. I have not, so I will have to check that out. Oh, Saturn Dusk, I never answered your comment from earlier. You were asking if I was going to do more videos talking about music. The videos I've done talking about music don't do well. I did a whole deep dive into the Godzilla and Kong soundtrack where I talked about the Kong theme and the Godzilla theme. I analyzed them. I went very in depth with them about my thoughts on them. The video did not do well. However, I did really like back in the day doing a review of the Godzilla King of the Monsters soundtrack. So I think at some point upcoming, it's on my slate for videos to make. I think at some point I'm gonna do a video reviewing the -1 soundtrack. I think they need to start planning out the movies. I sincerely think they don't know how it would go this far. I completely agree. I literally just talked about that in my video about the future of the MonsterVerse. I did not play the Kong game. I did not play it. I actually haven't played video games in a long time. I don't have time anymore because all I do is I wake up, I make a video, and then when the video's done, I go to sleep. And then I wake up the next day and then I start the next video and then I make the next video and then I go to sleep. And then I wake up the next day and I start the next video and then I finish that video and then I go to sleep. And then at some point I realized that it's been months since I've done subtitles for my Japanese viewers, and I realized that it's very difficult to try and go back and fix that now, and it's all getting away from me. A lot of the channels that you see that are thriving within the Godzilla community often are not editing their own content. They are often having someone else do that for them. I don't have an editor, and I've looked into it, but The people that you are seeing thrive are not thriving on their own. They're often aided by a team member or multiple team members. I'm just me. Occasionally, I have a friend who helps me out. Not often though, so it's a struggle. I don't, because it's not Ghidorah. I think that's a big misunderstanding, Execute Order 69. A big misunderstanding is that Ghidorah is the pilot of Mechagodzilla, and that's simply not true. It's not like when Godzilla 1954 took over Kiryu's body. Ghidorah is one of the consciousnesses inside of Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is fueled by Ghidorah, by the energy source from Hollow Earth, and by the AI that was Mechagodzilla. That is what's fueling Ghidorah. Or Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is the combination of all three, and not one in particular. And I think that's a big misunderstanding, that Mechagodzilla is piloted by Ghidorah. He isn't. I think the reason why the trailer wasn't received as well is because the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer was. As well as the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer was, is because it's not showing anything. We see the new monsters and designs, but that's pretty much it. Oh, you just totally brought me back to what I was trying to say a while ago. Yes, Childish Landino, you've just hit the nail on the head. Remember a second ago when I said, what has the trailer done? What has the trailer done? What has the Godzilla vs. or Godzilla X Kong the New Empire trailer accomplished? All it's accomplished, in my opinion, is showing us that monsters are there. There's monsters in this movie. Hey, there's a new ape in this movie that's orange. There's also a lot of other apes. It's kind of a Planet of the Apes situation. What's the story? If you have only seen the trailer, what's the story? You don't see Kong get into a fight with the Scar King, so you know that the Scar King's the bad guy because he roars at some people, but you don't realize why he's a threat. You certainly don't have any clue why Godzilla and Kong are teamed up. In fact, I'm not even sure the writers understand why Godzilla's in this movie. Let me spill a little inside tea for you guys while we're on the third hour of this live stream. Godzilla X Kong the New Empire was written as a Kong solo movie. It was written as a Kong solo movie, and they had a separate solo Godzilla movie that they were also actively working on. Well, the solo Godzilla movie and the solo Kong movies, they weren't sure if they would do as well as Godzilla vs. Kong, and so in order to see if Godzilla and the MonsterVerse still have as big of interest as they're hoping, they just put the two of them back into the same movie, and instead of coming up with a brand new story, they've taken the Kong movie and spliced Godzilla into it, much the same way that in 1973, Toho took the script for a Jet Jaguar movie and added Godzilla to it and then called it Godzilla vs. Megalon. What does Godzilla have to do with that movie? Well, he lives on an island and then he shows up and beats up the bad guys, and that's about it. What does Godzilla have to do with this new movie? I don't know. It's very curious to see how well integrated he is into the plot, but my fear is it's going to be very similar to where Godzilla is just a big gun who shows up when the plot needs him to do a big punch, and then that's about it, and he doesn't impact the story. But the point is, if you've just watched the Godzilla X Kong trailer, you've got no clue what the story of the movie is. You don't know what the movie's about. That's not good. Godzilla vs. Kong made it very, very clear what the story was. Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why. We need Kong. The world needs him to stop Godzilla. That's what the trailer tells us. Godzilla and Kong are going to fight because Godzilla's gone bad and Kong's got to stop him. That's what we were told. It was a simple story, but it was a story. Was it the story of the movie? Not entirely. But trailers don't need to tell the story of the movie. They need to tell the trailer of the story. I don't know, man. Those are my hot takes. I don't know what that is below me, man. Hi, Alex. How you doing, man? I'm glad Valerie's excited for the pink Godzilla. Oh, yeah, Saturn Dusk, that's not a bad idea. Thank you very much, Big Vince. I really appreciate that. Let's celebrate their first super on a live stream. Damn, we're getting a lot of first timers tonight. What happens if I click this button? Did anything happen? Oh, I liked your comment. That's cool. I guess I could like the super chats? I didn't realize that I could like super chats. But I can't like super stickers. I can like a lot of the super chats, but I cannot like super stickers. Well, sorry, super stickers users. Big Vince, I really appreciate the dono. Thank you so much, man. Hey, Demon, I was just wondering, have you seen Gamma Rebirth? If you have, what are your thoughts? Man, I'm so sorry. I have not seen Gamma Rebirth, but I have heard the beautiful acoustic version of the Gamma theme that is so pretty. It's so pretty. And I started to learn that theme on piano because it was so nice. I really liked it. Daneska, thank you so much. You're popping off tonight. I really appreciate that. Have I tried proposing my services to Lionsgate? The movie studio? No. I have not. I have never thought about Lionsgate. No. I have not done that. I've never reached out to any of the movie studios. I've heard that Gamma Rebirth is... I've heard very mixed things about it. I was talking to... maybe I won't say too much. I was talking to people who are close to the Gamma franchise, and they were not sold on the Gamma Rebirth. I've heard that Robert Kirkman's Transformers is very good, Adam. I'm not going to read it, but I've heard it's very good. All right. Let's... the stream, if you see the poll, go vote for the poll about the Godzilla Kong trailer. I'll end the poll here in a second. So far, actually, quite a bit more people are into it than I expected. I personally, like I said, it's just not connected with me because it's like there's no sense of story. The characters of the movie have like all but 2 shots in the trailer. You've got like... Okay, I think there's like 3 shots of the human characters in the trailer. Other than that, it's just footage of monsters just kind of walking around. It just doesn't give me a lot to get hyped on. I don't want the next trailer to just be full of spoilers. I don't want just tons of spoilers. That's going to really be disappointing. But I would at least like a hint about what the story of the movie is. What is the Scar King's deal? Give me a little bit of a hint about what he's up to. I don't know. Yeah, Adam, that's true. A lot of people only know the story because they just read the spoilers, which, to each their own. You guys shouldn't. 20 supers. Thank you so much, Freddie. Thank you. Are you fine with the pink spines if they are supposed to go for a mid-evolution thing? Like, I think they could work if they are more fleshy spines for now. So I've seen, as I'm sure many of you guys have, oh, Freddie, hey man, please don't feel the need to give the super chats. I really appreciate that, but, please don't feel obligated to do that. I really appreciate your support, but I don't want you to feel like you have to. You don't have to do those. As I'm sure many of you guys have seen, there's concept art. It's public now, public because it leaked, of an early stage of Godzilla's new spines, and they were like pink and red, and they looked like flesh, and it looked like basically you peeled the bone off of the muscle, and so the muscle was exposed, and I was really excited about that. I've also seen concept art of Godzilla from the new movie with red spines. I personally think the red ones looked really cool. They've obviously gone with pink because it's a random color that looks cool, I guess, is what they said in Total Film Magazine. I'm personally not too into the pink. I just think it's distracting. I also don't understand it because if you're peeling Godzilla's spines away, wouldn't they be blue? Like, wouldn't his internal energy source be blue? I guess it's because he soaked in pink radiation, so the pink has just energized him. Yeah, I guess that's fine. I guess if it's like, well, he sat on a pink... He fell asleep on a pink fryer and sucked it in. Why not? Why not turn his spines pink for one movie? Also, it's one movie. It's going to be temporary. I'm almost positive that the next time we see Godzilla in the MonsterVerse, he's not going to be pink anymore. So yeah, why not? We're doing it for one movie. He can be pink. What I think would be cool is if they were red spines and when Godzilla charged them, they became pink. That'd be cool, and I'd be super hyped about that. The thing for me about Godzilla X Kong is the rest of the fam aren't cheated. Oh, are you saying that your family, Saturn Dusk, your family isn't digging into this stuff too much, and so they're excited for it? Well, that's good, man. I honestly think a little distance from the movie would do me some good. That's why I'm kind of taking my time to cover it, because talking about it a ton is going to burn me out on it. It's just not a movie that is connecting with me, and so I don't want to spend more time talking about it than I need to. Otherwise, I'm going to burn myself out on it by the time it gets here. Okay, so there's an official trailer on the way, it sounds like. That's what I've heard as well. Brother, I watch your I watch you daily. Least I can do. Well, thank you very much, Freddie. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Alpha Dragon, Alpha Dragon Warrior. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Would you like to see Mothra with pink bioluminescence? Now that's an idea that I'm into. That's super cool. Now what are that? See, that's neat because I thought that the color changing bioluminescence of Mothra in Godzilla King of the Monsters was so freaking cool, and the way she shifted from red to orange to blue was amazing. The blue wound up being my favorite color scheme for Mothra so far. That'd be great. Yeah, and Mothra being pink, then you could play into the feminine aspect of the character. That's fine. I think the thing that throws me off about Godzilla is that it's just so bright. His atomic breath, even when it's turquoise, I think looks uglier than when it's a dark blue. And now it's so bright and pink. It's like, oh, red was cool because it's kind of like a darker, grittier color. But this pink is like, woof. It's like cotton candy spewing out of his mouth. It looks like he is just fought the killer clowns from outer space. Well, I'll end the poll here. Seems like a lot of you guys are really into the Godzilla X Kong trailer. Man, maybe I should talk about the movie more because a lot of you guys are super excited about it. I'm just trying not to burn myself out on it. But I also don't want to burn my viewers out on -1 because I've been praising -1 a ton, and I don't want to burn my viewers out on it. So I understand that talking about -1 a ton, it could scare some viewers away who are now getting sick of hearing the -1 praise. So I don't want to do that. Long-winded to say maybe I should talk about Godzilla X Kong some more. I'd love to see Rodan again. I think I desperately want to see Rodan again, Freddie. Dineska, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. On top of being a fan, you dedicated a YouTube channel to Godzilla. Someone like you should be one of the writers, should be on the writers team, at least as a consultant. I very much appreciate that. That means a lot to me. I really hope someday I get to share my Godzilla ideas with the world. I have Godzilla ideas that I just think are so cool, and I'd love to share those with the world, maybe someday, but I really appreciate the kind words, man. Mechagodzilla, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that, man. You didn't even have a message with that. Thank you, man. That's so nice of you. Yeah, Mechagodzilla entered the chat. Uh-oh. I don't have a favorite NBA player. I'm sorry. You're skeptical on Godzilla X Kong. It could make or break the MonsterVerse. I'm kind of right there with you. I'm a little concerned about it. But the results of the poll are quite interesting. How do you feel about Godzilla X Kong? 47% of you think it looked great. 30% think it just looked okay. 17% weren't feeling it. That's the camp I'm in. And then 4% of you thought it looked bad. I do not think it looks bad. I just think it's going to be a movie that the Godzilla aspects are going to really not gel with me. And the Kong thing seems like it could click. I think I could be into the Kong stuff, but the Godzilla stuff, I think I'm going to be like, what is he doing in this movie? He doesn't need to be here. Oh, Master, that's so funny. I did not like the Monarch Legacy of Monsters intro for the first episode. When I watched the first episode, I was very disappointed in the intro. I thought that it just could have gone way harder. What I do appreciate about it is that it gave a very good motif that became instantly recognizable, and I liked how malleable that song was. Sometimes it played and it was very moody, and I really liked that. Sometimes when it played, it was very energetic and action-packed, and sometimes it was very triumphant. I thought that was so cool. So I appreciated the way the theme evolved over the course of the show, and eventually I really grew to like it. Saturn Dusk, you want to know the funniest part of that video? I came up with that idea in the morning. I thought that would be hysterical to do a non-review of the movie. I thought that would be so funny. And then I sat down and clicked record. And this was in an era when I was so fresh to YouTube that I really didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of felt committed to the idea because I had pressed the record button. And the second I hit record, I realized I had nothing to say. Not only did I have nothing to say, but I also couldn't remember the original movie well enough to give a proper review of it because it had been like months or a year or so since I had seen it last. So the second I clicked record, I was like, what on earth is the point of me recording this video? And I was desperately winging it. And this was in an era where I was like, well, I recorded it, I gotta post it. So I just posted the video. I shudder to think of how that video turned out. I would never be brave enough to go back and watch it again. How do you think Godzilla X Kong will do at the box office? I think it'll be I promise you I will revisit the idea. I think Godzilla X Kong is going to do just fine at the box office. I think it's going to do just fine. And I mean fine. I don't think it's going to do great. I don't think it's going to do that good. But I would guess it's going to pull somewhere between 400 million to 500 million. If we're lucky, it'll be on the higher end of the 400s. If we're not lucky, it'll be on the lower ends. If it's going to be bad news if the movie drops to the 300s. I think that's when you're going to see them start to be like, are these things worth it? And it's going to really be the toy sales that determines if they're going to make another one. And if that's the case, well, then they're going to be following the trend of action figures rather than the trend of making good movies. And they're going to be like, well, we just need more monsters, more action, more crazy stuff. How many more action figures can we squeeze out of the next one? Rather than being like, oh, cool, that one did well. What's the next good story we could tell? That's my fear, is that if the movie does in the 300s, they radically shift in the course of action figure films. I think if the movie does in the 400s, 500s, you could see them start to take steps back, rein it in a little bit, and go back to, your King of the Monsters styled tone. I saw some people on Twitter. There's a lot of like pseudo-intellectuals on Twitter who like to act like they're so smart. A lot of people often try and pick holes in the things that I say. So, for instance, yesterday I tweeted out about back in the day, Toho would make like one suit per Godzilla movie. Maybe in the later Godzilla films, they would produce more than one suit. But back in the day, like the Showa era, they're producing one suit per Godzilla movie. They're using some previous suits for the water scenes, and maybe they've got a suit that's cut in half or something that they're using the legs of or the torso of. But I tweeted out that, generally speaking, in a Godzilla movie, they're making about one suit, and then it lasts them the whole movie. And yeah, you got to touch the thing up, but it's going to last them the whole movie. And then you put it on camera and you just let the thing go. Nowadays, you have to frame by frame make Godzilla look good. And that's why when there's too much Godzilla in a movie, the CG starts to slip. And a lot of people were like, this guy has no idea how CG works. As if I'm not really good friends with the motion capture actors who play the characters. As if I didn't interview the VFX supervisor for Godzilla King of the Monsters. As if I'm not friends with the VFX specialists and artists on Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Monarch Legacy of Monsters. As if I'm not friends with the animators who work on these projects. As if I don't know that. So a lot of people are like, Brother thinks that they've got to retexture Godzilla for every single frame of the movie. That is not what I'm saying. What I was saying was that with CGI, every single frame, you have to be making that frame look particularly good. Otherwise, there's going to be like a dinosaur that disappears in the mouth of of the T-Rex at the end of Jurassic Park, or people are going to point to the pretty wonky CGI perspective when Godzilla's standing in the Coliseum. They're going to point out how his eyes are too crisp and how the Coliseum looks too weirdly blurry. So it's like, I don't know, man. Twitter's full of pseudo-intellectuals, right, who think they know better. What was the point that I even that got me on this? Oh, it was that people were trying to point out how they're like, D-Man said that Godzilla should go back in the direction of King of the Monsters, despite the fact that Godzilla vs. Kong made more money. No shit, Godzilla vs. Kong made more money. It's the Avengers. You've brought the Avengers together. The Avengers were billion-dollar movies, whereas the solo films were not. You would expect the crossover to make more money. No shit, man, it's a crossover. That's the point of doing it. But when you do too many crossovers in a row, they're not going to do as well. Also, for the record, Godzilla King of the Monsters didn't underperform because it was a bad movie or because it had a bad tone. It underperformed because it had a bad release date. Godzilla vs. Kong would not have done... It would either have done really well and proven, like, the Avengers have come together. It's time to... Like, people are going to go see it, and the box office is really boosted for the one time they do it for the first time because it's a novelty. Or... the movie would have completely fallen flat on its face. It had a really good release date. It had very modest competition. It had competition, had more than people gave it credit for, but it didn't have a ton of competition. It was also the first blockbuster movie to open the world up after the pandemic, so it was exciting. It was new. It was exciting to be back in theaters, and it was just a dumb movie that you got to turn your brain off for. You didn't have to think too much about how horrible the world was. You just got to sit there for 2 hours and watch some guys punch each other. The problem with King of the Monsters wasn't that it was a bad movie, it was that it had a bad release strategy. Godzilla vs. Kong just so happened to benefit from a really solid release strategy, and yeah, maybe it could have done twice as well as it did if it came out in pre-COVID times. Or maybe it would have completely tanked. We don't know. I think Godzilla x Kong is going to be a bit more of an indication about how Godzilla vs. Kong would have done. Godzilla x Kong, if it does really well, you're going to be like, oh, well, Godzilla vs. Kong would have done even better. If Godzilla x Kong kind of falters, well, Godzilla vs. Kong probably would have as well. But man, yeah, Twitter is full of the dumbest Godzilla fans out there, man. I don't even know who that is, Valerie. I got no clue. Yeah, Big Dinosaur, it absolutely did, and it gave no incentive to go see the movie in theaters because you had already seen it in the trailers. Speaking of that shot, do you think that was a real shot of the Coliseum? I think that was a PNG that they added into the movie, my friend. I think they added like a PNG into the movie. It's like weirdly blurred. The people who don't understand the perspective issue with that shot don't understand perspective. It's not about how big Godzilla looks in comparison to the building. It's about that the building looks awkwardly bubbly. It's not that they blurred it right. They didn't. There's not... The depth of focus in that shot is wildly off, and I don't understand why people would defend that shot. Freddie, thank you so much, man. Dude, you're not supposed to donate anymore. You specifically said you're not going to do that. Please, if you need to keep your money, don't feel obligated to donate. He says, Twitter banned my only tweet for the Godzilla Xbox. Wait, you tweeted about the Godzilla Xbox and you didn't get it? Is that what you're saying? Or is it that you tweeted about the Godzilla Xbox and they didn't like your tweet and so they blocked it? Either way, that's funny. Yes, Monarch brought back the MonsterVerse Godzilla that I loved as well. It was a nice return to form. It was a beautiful return to the MonsterVerse that we left behind. And it made me so happy. And it made me so justified in that this was the MonsterVerse that I was into. And I'm really sad that we went away from it. I thought that the Monarch Legacy of Monsters was kind of bittersweet in that I know that the movies aren't going to go back to being that for a while. Maybe ever in the MonsterVerse. And it's kind of sad because I really love that style of Godzilla story. The very sci-fi oriented much more grounded stories that have a lot more of an emotional weight to them. Did you watch the Godzilla X Kong commercial of Godzilla X Kong toys? Kong literally has green electric powers. No, I have not seen that. But that's if that spoils the movie, that's really funny. It's also really funny that they went with green lightning. I wouldn't expect that in the movie though, for the record. I don't know. Could be. I don't read the leaks. I wouldn't get your hopes up for that. Yeah, Kong coming out at the end was awesome. Oh, I also liked on Twitter today. I don't know if any of you saw this. Saturn Dusk, I don't know if you're on Twitter and you saw this, or Orlandino. I don't know if you saw this either, but I had made a bunch of people like have a huge freak out over the fact that I said it was nice to see that they officially recognized Kong as King Kong, and people were like, when did they say that in the episode? Where did you get the name Ion Dragon from? They don't say Ion Dragon in the episode. That's from the press release. Of course I'm talking about the press release. Maybe I should have specified that, but like I also ran out of room in the tweet. The press release called him King Kong, and it's public. You can go find it. I just thought it was so funny because it's like you guys all were just throwing around the name Ion Dragon or Endoswarmer or whatever as if it was in the show and public knowledge when it only came from the press release. People correcting me in my reviews, which I recorded before the press releases, and they're like, it's actually called the Frostvark. Brother, that name wasn't in existence at the time I recorded the video. Thank you very much, Big Vince. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Hey D-Man, was just curious, do you have any interest in pursuing the Ultra series? I know it's been a while since you've talked about it. Saturn knows I really want to keep talking about it. It's just at the moment with my upload schedule, I'm trying to chase the videos that are going to do better. I'm trying to chase the videos that are quicker to make. Those video essays certainly are not quick to make, but those are kind of my 1 for me and then 6 for everyone else for the week. I don't know if I'm going to get to Ultraman anytime soon, but I would love to. I've scripted the 3rd Ultraman review. I would love to do that one. And I loved Ultraman 66, so I'd love to keep talking about Ultra stuff. As far as after that, I don't know. I plan on just kind of watching the shows, and then if I feel like reviewing them, but not doing episode to episode the way I started with Ultraman. That's going to be a lot. You always trigger my social media notifications. I also always trigger everybody on social media, it would seem. Would you watch the Netflix Ultraman movie releasing this year? Absolutely, yeah, I'll check that out. If it's a movie, then sure, why not? Because if it's a show, it's going to take longer to watch. If it's a movie, I'll be able to watch it once and then move on. So sure. That's why I love King of the Monsters so much. They aren't afraid to say the monsters' names out loud and proud with 100% sincerity. Well, I wouldn't say they say it with 100% sincerity, considering that they had to make a gonorrhea joke, but I do agree that I appreciate the King of the Monsters just goes for it and is like, well, that's Mothra, that's Rodan, and that's King Ghidorah, move on. They exist, get over it. I really liked that. Yes, many of the monsters' names nowadays just comes from press releases or toy boxes. Like, I'm honestly curious if they're even going to say the name Scar King in the movie. Because it's a silly name and it feels like something that would just be on the toy box, the same way that like Warbat isn't what the creatures are called in the movie. They don't have a name in the movie. They're just big snakes. Ultra Q is built for episodic reviews. Oh man. I do own, I got myself Ultra Q and I got myself Ultra 7. So I can continue watching that stuff. That gonorrhea joke, I think, single-handedly tanked the King of the Monsters human cast in the eyes of Godzilla Twitter. That's like the only thing that people... A while ago, I was like, what is your genuine hang-up on the Godzilla King of the Monsters human cast? And almost everybody was like, the fucking guy who made the gonorrhea joke needs to go. That was like most of the comments. It was mostly about how people did not like Sam Coleman. Pissed they didn't do a name drop in Monarch, like, this is Monarch and this is their legacy of monsters. That would have been good stuff. Yeah, maybe Kong's glove will have an electric punch. I don't know, because it's bio-enhanced. Yeah, I don't know. Thunder glove. I don't know. Nothing in that makes a sense. Thunder. I guess thunder glove. Um, I guess I could see that. I guess I could see that. Uh, yes, James Bond, I do agree. It is probably the worst line in the MonsterVerse overall. Hanuman versus the Seven Ultramen. Childish Landino, are you? Can you? I don't know if you can DM me, but I don't even know what you're talking about. But that sounds fun. If you can DM me, you should DM me whatever you're talking about. Dineska, I don't think I missed your last super chat. Was your last super chat about how you felt that I should reach out to the movie studios? Is that the last one? About how you felt I should be a writing consultant? I said the one where you said that you felt I should be a writing consultant. That was very nice. I appreciated that. Saturn Dust, that's not a bad idea. Maybe at some point I'll do that. Yeah, I'll watch Trick or Treat 2 when it comes out. I liked the first one. And I like Michael Dougherty, so yeah. Okay, it is on the hour, guys, so I'm going to end this one here. It's getting late. And I want to get some sleep because I got to finish my Monarch review in the morning. It's like a 30-minute... I think it's like 30 minutes or something. It was a long one. It was a longer Monarch review, which makes sense. It's the season finale. How long was it? Yeah, it was about 30 minutes. By the way, if you want to see my Monarch Legacy of Monsters... If you want to hear my Monarch Legacy of Monsters spoiler review early... my Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 10 review, far more organized than this live stream was, is in the Patreon. Patreon should be linked in the description. Should be. Let me check if it is. But it's linked in the Patreon. If you go check out the Patreon, then you can potentially listen to my review early. Let me see. It is in the description. All right. Thank you, Apex. I appreciate that. Night, Joey. Have a good one. Acno, I don't know what happened to him. It's been a while since I've seen him in the chats. I think he's just busy these days. Childish, thank you very much. I appreciate you sending me that. Oh, gosh. There's multiple versions of it? What does that mean? Oh, boy. Freddie, take care, man. Thank you so much for the support throughout the night. Same with you, Dineska. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it, my guys. Dineska, I was just saying that I thought it was a really nice comment. I would love to work on any of the movies in any way possible. And I really appreciate that. I definitely in many ways have dedicated my life to Godzilla, and so I would love to be able to be a more official part of that world. But you know, that's the dream. Maybe someday. All right, good night, guys. Execute Order 69. Thank you so much for all the support throughout the night. Take care, man. Same with you, Valerie. I appreciate it. Adam, good night. The Monster, good night. Master Sheep, take care. Childish Landino, good night. Noob Master, good night. All right, good night, everybody. Saturn Dust, good night, man. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a long one, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was a nice return to the old days of streaming. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man.